6:30, so I'd like to call this meeting of March 22nd, 2023 of the Willits City Council to order. And we will start out with a pledge to the flag. I'm wondering if the members of Troop 42 would like to lead us in the pledge. If you all would stand up and recite the pledge, we'll join you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Dolores, may we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Strong. Here. Rodriguez.
Present.
Stransky.
Yes.
Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mayor Conley.
Yes. All right, as usual, we will open the meeting with public communications. The City Council welcomes participation in its meetings. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person so that everyone has an opportunity to address the council. To expedite matters and avoid repetition, whenever any group of persons wishes to address the council on the same subject matter, the mayor may request the group appoint a spokesperson. This item is limited to matters under the jurisdiction of the City Council, which are not on the posted agenda. Public criticism of the City Council, Commission, boards, and agencies will not be prohibited. The City Council can take no action on non-agendized items. Is there anyone here tonight who would like to address the council? You will also have an opportunity to address the council on the agendized items when we open public comment on each of those. So, okay, if everyone's holding for now, we'll move on to public matters. The first item is a presentation of a proclamation. We will be acknowledging National Public Safety Telecommunications Week, which takes place from April 9th to 15th of this year. And I have the honor of reading the proclamation. Whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, or emergency medical services, and when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas the safety of our police officers and firefighters is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the Willits Dispatch Communications Center over 11,000 times for calls for service annually. And whereas professional public safety dispatchers are the first and most critical contact our community members have with emergency services and play a vital role within the police department to protect and provide service to our diverse community with professionalism, integrity, and respect. And whereas our frontline first responder dispatchers are dedicated, highly trained individuals who perform as a vital link between our police officers and community members by monitoring their activities over the radio and telephone, providing responders with key information, ensuring their safety and the public at large. And whereas the public safety dispatchers of the Willits Police Department work in conjunction with field personnel to preserve and uphold the law with compassion and fairness, and have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals and facilitated with suppression of fires and treatment of patients. And whereas each dispatcher has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job in this past year, now therefore I, Greta Connie, Mayor of the City of Willits, along with Vice Mayor Gerardo Gonzalez and Council Members Madge Strong, Sabrina Rodriguez, and Larry Stransky, do hereby proclaim the week of April 9th through 15th, 2023 to be National Public Safety Telecommunications Week in Willits in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our city residents and visitors safe. Thank you very much from the whole council. Chief.
Madam Mayor, if I may, in honor of Dispatchers Week, I would like if you could present a proclamation to our senior dispatcher or dispatch supervisor and our most senior employee at the department. This will be Debbie Tonelli's last year with us. I've tried to talk her into extension for 2, 3, 4 years, but she will have none of it. So Debbie, if you would come on up and you can accept from the mayor.
My honor, Debbie, to present the proclamation to you and to thank you for your many decades of service to the city. Yeah, 40 years.
Wow.
Astounding.
I just want to point out that Debbie
was my trainer when I was a dispatcher.
How do you do?
She knows all the secrets.
I pushed him out of the way a couple of times.
Thank you.
All right, that's the fun part. Now we'll hear some updates. We have an update this evening from Little Lake Fire Department District. Is Chief Carter here tonight?
No, he's not. It's just a written report in the packet.
Okay. All right. So once again, any who are interested in hearing about the progress of Little Lake Fire Department and the calls that they answer is welcome to read the notes within the packet. Next up is our 3rd District Supervisor, John Huschek, with his update.
Hi. Thank you, everyone. Let's see, I have a few things to report. One is the Great Redwood Trail Agency is having an open house forum tomorrow, and that's from 6 to 8 right over there in the community center. And so we're looking for any kind of input, and people have a lot of opinions. And this is the planning phase of the Great Redwood Trail. And so the people who are constructing the master plan want to hear what the concerns are of the citizens and, opportunities. So if you have any concerns or, ideas, then it's from 6 to 8. And you don't have to be here the whole time. It's going to be divided into tables, and you can show up whenever you want from 6 to 8. Okay. We just had this incredible snowstorm, and I just wanted to say we had a meeting, the county had a meeting with FEMA yesterday, and so we're waiting for the official declaration from the federal government. But, we've done our declaration, the state's done a declaration of emergency, and we're just waiting for the last piece with the feds. And so when that happens, we're hoping to have individual assistance, just like we had for the rainstorms and the flooding that happened in December and January. And, FEMA was here for several weeks. I guess they dealt with several hundred people, and we're hoping to have the same attention to the situation we had with the snow. So that could be in the next few weeks. And, if people have individual assistance or public assistance for, whether it's city issues or county issues, we're hoping that FEMA comes through and takes care of all those situations. And then I was just in a meeting with City Manager Bender about the museum and the strategic plan efforts that we're doing. I just wanted to remind everyone that there is a survey, and it's at mendocinocounty.org/museum. And the survey is really to tell the museum what you want in the museum and how to make it better connect between the city and the county and the people. So they've been doing a lot of outreach sessions and doing them throughout the county. And so we're hoping to come up with a strategic plan for the museum. And lastly, I'd like to thank Council Member Strong for the community forums. That there's been 2 of them so far, and the last one on Sunday was very well received. Lots of people were there. It was at the senior center, and a lot of good ideas on how to make the community stronger, economically and also for the well-being of the people. So anyway, if there's any questions, and the museum has a new exhibit that's going to be starting in I think about a week, called Gadgets Galore, and it's transforming the American household. And some of the gadgets they have up there are from Willits already, or some are from just the 100 years ago or so. Anyway, it's well worth seeing. Okay, if there's any questions or.
Is your telephone number in the book?
No, but, it's 707.
Thank you, just a second. Okay.
972-4214.
Thank you.
And it's always in the monthly update too, that I put in the newspaper.
Councilwoman Strong has.
Yeah, I have one question, and that is, somebody just cornered me at the store and said that they got a notice that the skunk train was asking for abandonment of their whole right-of-way from Willits to Fort Bragg. And I just wondered if you or anyone else knows about that.
Yeah, that was a rumor that was going, I heard about that too, and I think there's an article in the Mendocino Voice that kind of led people a little bit astray. But really, there's nothing about the Great Redwood Trail will affect the operations of the Willits to Fort Bragg line of the skunk train. So
Well, he was concerned about it because apparently every property owner along that right-of-way is getting some kind of a notice. And I told him to bring that notice to city's attention and maybe he can clarify whether, but it sounds like it's a false alarm.
no, the abandonment is from Willits to Cloverdale, that portion of the line, but nothing that will affect the skunk train's operations.
Thank you. Any other council member have any questions for Mr. Hastrek? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Now we have an update from Troop 42 regarding the Eagle Scout project. If you could say your name for the record.
Yeah, hi, my name is Annalie Gonzalez, as you can see on the presentation. And I just got done working on my Eagle Scout project, which I'll be talking about today. So my Eagle Scout project, I named it Community Pantries because we installed small little pantries on Red Grove and one on Coast Street. And so a little bit of background on this idea. I'm a long-standing volunteer/worker at our local soup kitchen, Willits Daily Bread, and during some time in August when we were having that really hot heat wave, we were handing out water bottles, and it occurred to me that after we closed that day, there would be no more help for people who need food and water. Willits Daily Bread is only open certain hours during the day, and the food bank too is only open certain days of the week. So there is a lack of help for these people. So I came up with this idea, and it's important to note that this idea was not unique to this town because we had a pantry already here. If you look behind you, this was an existing pantry that was found on Coast Street. Just some citizen in town had decided to put it out. As you can see in the picture, it's really small. It's kind of not the best looking. In this picture, you can kind of see inside of it. It's a little debilitated and just not a lot of room in general. So I worked with my scoutmaster, Kenneth Peterson, to kind of come up with more designs for these pantries. And it also occurred to me that this pantry wasn't in the best location. It was a little hidden and a little hard to find, and there was only one of them within town. So that's when I approached Mr. O'Shea and asked if it would be okay to put one of these pantries in Red Grove where the community can access it more easily. And thankfully, I got a yes. So that's what we were working on. So if you can see here, this is when we first started building them. This is after we cut the pieces and painted them, and this is them sitting in our hut drying. This is me working with another scout, Isabella, who's here, putting them together. This is the Rec Grove pantry before we put the roof on. This is the pantry that's being installed, or that was installed on Coast Street. You can see that it's bigger because the Coast Street pantry was already established, so I figured people would still know about it, and it'd be better to have that one to be bigger. This is the Rec Grove pantry with the trim on. That's the roof we put on. That's us putting the roof on the bigger pantry for Coast Street. And this is the plaque that I had made to put on the Rec Grove one to acknowledge the help the city had with my troop in this project. These are both of the finished pantries. This is when we were putting in the concrete and the post for the Rec Grove pantry. This is after we installed the pantry. This is the posts for the pantry on Coast Street, and that's the pantry installed on Coast Street. And this is when we filled the pantry the next day in the Rec Grove, and this is when we filled it the next day on Coast Street, and that's it. So the cool thing is that we've already had to restock them just a few days ago. There was a lot of things that were taken from them, but there were still things there. And I've gotten a lot of people who are homeless and who kind of feel this food insecurity in our community already come up to me and say that this has been a huge help for them. They've, during the weekends when they don't really have food, they can go there and just grab something quick to eat. So now there's more support for them in our community. So yeah. Do you guys have any questions? Yeah.
Who supplies the food in the pantry?
Oh, that's right. Okay, I forgot to say this. So we established a program with Willits Daily Bread, who will be supplying the food to the pantries and also checking up on them with their workers. However, it is anybody in the community can go in there and put food in there, or if anybody walks by and sees trash on the ground, we encourage them to just pick it up. Any other questions?
I was just thinking what a fine example you are for those who are working towards their Eagle Scout badge. You spoke very, very well, very eloquent. Your information was right on par, and I just really want to compliment you for that. And as you were speaking, I was thinking about the Scout Oath and all that is in it. And I think that it would be lovely if you would recite it for us, because so much of what you're doing goes right back to what scouting is all about. Do you mind?
Oh, sure.
You know you still have it memorized, right? You can enlist your fellow
my
scouts.
other scouts stand up and do it with me. Okay, please join me in the Scout Oath. On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country, and to obey the Scout law, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. 2.
To help other people, and that you've done. Well done. Good job.
That's a
You're
really
making me
great
cry.
That's a
Very
great
proud of
idea. Great idea.
Thank you so much for your offering to our community.
We also have a hand up there too. I just wanted to ask, certainly if the food bank is supplying the food periodically, kind of making sure that they're stocked up, the donations should go to the food bank. Do you have your costs of doing this work, has that been covered?
Yeah, certainly. So the cost of putting the pantries together and stuff has been covered, and we've even had extra money after the project, which went to the beneficiary, which is Willits Daily Bread, and they will use that money to cover the cost of buying extra food to keep the pantries stocked.
Okay, Daily Bread, not the food bank.
Yeah, Willits Daily Bread.
Thank you.
And we have a community member who has a comment.
She answered it. I was trying to figure out where the funds go or how to donate to the program.
Awesome, Jay.
Thank you.
I just want to, sorry. I just want to say thank you, and it's a good example. A lot of times people come up here wanting the city, government, or whoever to do something, and it's a good example of community members or just people just finding a problem, solving it, and taking the literal bull by the horns and taking care of it. So I commend you for that, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Awesome. Okay, thank you.
Let's not forget, Troop 42 does so much for our community throughout the year, including putting the flags out on Main Street for our holidays. So we really appreciate you. And girls. All right, we will move on to the enactment of ordinances, of which we have none tonight. So then we move on to consent calendar. The only item on the calendar for this evening is the City Council minutes from the March 8th, 2023 meeting. Do any council members have any comments about the minutes?
I would like to move the consent calendar.
I'll
Okay.
second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Dolores, can we get a roll call, please?
Oh, public.
Oh, does anybody from the public have a comment regarding the minutes? No, thank you very much. Now,
Councilmember Stransky?
Yeah. Oh. We can go on name order. I was saying yes on his, no, yes.
Rodriguez?
yes.
Stransky?
Yes.
Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mayor Connie?
Yes. I did want to point out also that I was not at the last council meeting, but I did read the minutes in the packet, and so that's why I'm able to vote on them. I know that has been a question in the past of whether or not we can vote on minutes that we didn't attend, but as long as you read the packet and are informed, you are able to make the vote.
Good to know.
All right, monthly activity reports. We have building activity report included in our packet. This is nothing that requires action by the city council, but is of public interest. So anyone who's interested in building activity within the city is welcome and invited to look at that. We have no items on our commissions, agencies, and authorities. And we move on to the city manager reports and recommendations. This evening we have a couple of different items. The first is an adoption of a resolution appointing the city council members to represent the city of Willits and to vote on behalf of the city at the League of California Cities Redwood Empire Division business meetings and division legislative committee meetings. Brian?
So yes, Madam Mayor, this is a housekeeping item that is going before the council. So basically, the resolution nominates or names Member Gonzalez as the, essentially the number one, and then the alternate would be Member Stransky
Yes.
if there is a conflict with either one scheduled to attend the meetings. And the next meeting is this Friday in Arcadia?
Arcata.
Yeah, okay. So basically, this is an important item. Basically, it allows the city council to have a voice via the division to the league, and it'll also equally where the league can convey information on what's happened in Sacramento, what has happened with different pieces of legislature, and different items that would be your area of concern. It gets funneled back. And anything you act on or you hear that you think needs to be conveyed back to Sacramento, the league is your voice.
And the other thing I want to add is that I would welcome if you have a question or something you say, yes, we need to vote on something when I go up there. I don't know, do you get when Sarah sends things?
We do.
Okay.
Yes, and we recognize that we'll print out the hard copies and get them off to Member Stransky as well.
Thank you.
Try to do that in a timely fashion. So once again, the recommendation is to proceed with the resolution as submitted and nominate Member Gonzalez as your designated person and Stransky as the alternate.
Okay. Do any council members have any questions about this? I'll open it up to the public. If anybody has any questions regarding this resolution. Just to clarify, the League of California Cities represents small and, well, all cities, all municipalities in California, and helps us to make sure that we have a voice at the state legislature to make sure that we can retain as much local control as possible. So we have been a member of the League of California Cities for eons, and it remains a very important part of keeping us connected to Sacramento and making sure that they're looking out for our best interests. Yes.
I would like to move approval of the recommendation.
Excellent.
I second it.
And we have a motion and a second. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Strong?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Stransky?
Yes.
Gonzalez?
Yes,
Mayor Connie?
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
thank you.
All right, next item is the athletic fields use policy. The City Council reviewed the policy on February 22nd. The council sought to have different organizations meet with staff to provide comments to the policy. This version being represented tonight incorporates the discussed comments. We have one council member who is going to recuse herself.
I am.
Okay. Just so the public knows, when a council member recuses themselves, typically they will leave council chambers and not participate in the discussion or vote. Councilwoman Rodriguez is actually a major part of Willits Youth Soccer, and so she will be participating in tonight's meeting as a member of the public so that she can communicate on this item with the council. Once the item moves out of public comment back to the dais for council discussion, she will at that point leave the council chambers so that she is not unfairly influencing the council. But we want to hear her voice, and obviously she is a member of the public and an important part of this organization. Okay.
So Mayor Connie, when a council person recuses themselves because of a conflict, they need to state the reasons for the conflict. I think you have summarized that. But the rules also require that that recused member leave the room until it's time for public participation.
Okay, all right. So I guess we'll do a little bit up here first, and then we'll call you back in when we have...
I'll state for the public record that I am recusing myself, not because I have any financial interest or gain, but I do have a personal interest as I am a volunteer member of the organization.
All right, and when we open it up for the public, we'll call you back into the room, Sabrina. Thank you. Brian, will you introduce the item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, as noted on the agenda and just provided in that intro, this item first was presented to the council on February 22nd, literally 30 days ago. And at that time, that was the first opportunity that the council had to review the policy and hear comments from staff, kind of the thought process that went into crafting that policy. And here's some of the hard points. Basically, the city as an organization does not have a policy in place now regarding how athletic fields are allocated through an orderly or organized process. Basically, there is a system in place where several organizations in the past would inform staff of their need for fields, and we accommodated them. And basically at that time, it was using most of the field space during predetermined seasons for Little League, which is spring, and then soccer that was traditionally more summer than the fall, as well as the fall. When this was presented back on February 22nd, there was two members representing principal organizations who utilized the fields more recently, or have used the field. And at that time, they had expressed some concerns about the content of certain provisions within the policy. And under guidance and instructions from the council, staff was asked to meet with the representatives at a separate meeting and review their comments, concerns, and see where policy amendments can be made, what changes could be done, just kind of go a little deeper into what we were trying to do with the provisions itself. That meeting did take place, and the policy that came out of that discussion is what is in your packet tonight. And the document, I believe, when it was originally submitted into the packet, noted the changes in red font. Is that still that way? Yep. So there was a couple provisions that were removed. I'm just seeing it on the screen there. There was a couple elements removed from the original proposal. And there was a lot of discussion related to what the obligations the city has in field maintenance, what the organizations can expect from the city. We wanted to clarify that. Basically, what we're trying to do with this policy is make it universal. I've been very clear in this whole practice is that we have limited footprint to accommodate groups. And in that, within that scope, we want to be fair and equitable as much as we can. The policy is not first come, first serve. It's not the biggest group gets the biggest footprint. We will accommodate all users. We do recognize groups that may have 200 participants. We will recognize that and accommodate their needs for 200. But we still want to accommodate groups that have 20 participants, or a new group that is not been actively involved in the usage of our fields. We want to encourage different groups. So that's what this policy, the main focus of this policy, is looking to make the burden or the responsibilities on staff to say, we accept these applications, requests for usage, and we will schedule field time. We will try to use the fields as best of our ability. We do not want to damage the fields beyond their carrying capacity and then take them out of rotation and then ruin the schedule for everyone else.
I have a question.
Yes?
Okay, so when this was first presented, we had sort of a prioritization based on volunteerism or,
Yes.
yeah. And we've removed that.
Yes.
I guess the question, this is what I've heard from some people in the community, is does that mean that an organization who's expecting to have field usage for X amount of period might have that taken away from them mid-season?
No.
Okay, so even though there's not a prioritization, a ranking of who gets what, once an organization has field time committed, they will have that for the
They
duration.
will have that block. And in the discussions that we had, we also noted that some of the organizations may have championship seasons or run playoffs or additional time, or the weather. You know, the early season weather patterns may limit their ability on the field, and they may want to extend out into more ideal conditions. And we recognize that, and we will accommodate that as well. We're not going to, if they had a 3-month block, and at the end of that 3rd month, we're not going to chase them off the field.
Okay.
We're accepting the responsibility. What we're saying is, you're going to have the field, we're going to maintain the field with your cooperation, and we will try to accommodate all user requests.
So essentially, we're trying to accommodate as many different groups as possible.
Yes.
Give everyone a crack at them, allocate as much as possible to the
Yes.
largest groups, or to the groups that need the most, but not like promising exclusive usage for
Yes,
that
we
incident.
have removed that element, and that was kind of been the practice before, and it was a practice that happened de facto. Like I said, we didn't have an organized or defined policy in place. There was going through this usage of contracts, but the contracts was almost kind of an extension of use, exclusive use rights. And we recognized when the council instructed staff to come up with a policy, we were asked to look at that as, is that really the best usage of public facilities that are maintained through general fund activity? And we recognize, no, that's not the correct way. The other thing that we just want to put in there with carrying capacity and accommodating as many needs and user groups as possible, like I said, it's the field conditions. We can't overuse the fields and then ruin them, especially when they're saturated or when it's dry conditions and they become dust bowls. We have to maintain to a level because we have to turn them over for the next group.
Any council members have a question? Larry?
Yes, I do. Were all of the people that used the facilities at this meeting?
At the recent meeting that was held after the February 22nd meeting, 2 of the principal groups were there. The 3rd was asked, and we don't know why. They were invited, let's put it that way, yes.
I got a letter, and I don't know how many other people got the letter.
We all got it.
But
Yes.
it sounded like the other people weren't invited, but I don't know that. That's why I asked the question.
They were invited, yes.
Do you have any idea why they didn't come?
I'm not sure if I'm allowed to speak, but I'm not party.
Not yet, but we'll give
Okay,
you an...
okay, you have an answer to that.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
Okay.
Bill?
Question.
Yes.
In our search of the records, since we had some folks that had long-standing use, did we find anything, any contracts, anything in our records
No.
that promised perpetuity for any groups?
No, we had not. And basically, it's going back 20-plus years. We did a search both through clerking, the clerk department's responsibilities. We also looked at some of the old grant applications and some planning applications, and we couldn't find anything. Like I said, it was kind of, it just rolled over with different city managers, different administrations, different staff members, and it just gained momentum as that's always the policy.
A tacit agreement.
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor, there's been reference to a letter that was received by council members, and when someone writes a letter to members of the city council regarding an item that's on the agenda for the council to take action on, it's a public matter. The letter probably should become a part of the record of this proceeding, and so if staff has that letter, I think the letter should be included in the record.
Great, thank you.
I have one letter.
She has it.
Okay.
All right, if there are no further comments from council, I would like to open it up to the public and invite Mrs. Rodriguez back into the room. Thank you.
Can she come up and, she's the public?
Yes, we're just going to wait for Sabrina to come in, so everyone who would like to participate is here. All right. Jennifer, would you like to speak first? Okay. All right. So I'm opening it up to the public. So you have 3 minutes at the podium. Just announce your name and what organization you're with. And we'd love to hear from you.
My name is Jennifer Lucky. I'm the president of the Willits Youth Soccer Board. Soccer saved my life in 6th grade as a young lost youth. My family could not afford high fees or transportation. It was the volunteer coaches through our small community that made it possible for me to play. Now, as a Mendocino College soccer alumni graduate and kinesiology degree holder, I return to provide the same opportunities to the youth just like me who cannot afford to play. That's why I volunteer my time that I don't have after being a mother and holding a full-time job at Public Health. Willits Youth Soccer is more than happy to share our town's playing fields with all youth organizations, the ones like ourselves that provide opportunities to the low social class and others that provide to the high social classes to make sure everyone is included. Last year, we served 284 youth with 20 teams, utilizing 4 fields, Monday through Thursday, 5 to 8 p.m., and Saturday mornings from August through October. This is 3 months out of the year at 12 hours a week plus 1 game day. As I mentioned, we are more than happy to share the fields, but there's a difference of sharing and being pushed off the fields during the only season Willits Youth Soccer runs, as we experienced this last year. If Willits Youth Soccer loses field access during the only season they provide opportunities, they will no longer be able to serve the 284 youth, plus at times, that consists mostly of the underprivileged, low social class families. Soccer truly saved my life, gave me purpose, taught me how to work as a team and support people, kept me away from drugs and alcohol. That is one of the #1 killers to low income, low social class families. Soccer helped me see a future. We ask that you consider renewing our contract to ensure these families have an affordable, healthy opportunity during 1 season out of the year. Thank you.
Thank you. And as to Larry's question earlier.
You didn't answer my question. Were you at the meeting?
No, I was not. I was invited to the meeting via email, and I replied my availability due to having a full-time job. It was with a day's notice, and I had to work out of town on that day. So I replied that I was available on one of the options, and they held the meeting on the day that I was not available, which was that Thursday, I believe, instead of Monday, which was offered.
So you got the letter saying that she couldn't make it but she had alternate days?
My understanding, and I'm looking at Dolores, the city clerk, who has the responsibility for scheduling meetings, we put the notice out to the various organizations that we were going to hold a meeting. I believe the meeting, that there was a couple dates, and that went out relatively before the actual date of the meeting. So we believe there was enough time to correspond about a change of, availability or moving the date around. Right up to the point that we were holding that meeting, we got confirmation from the other 2 organizations, and they were in attendance. So they had the two other organizations that were in attendance had the same time frame to respond, either confirming their appointment, their availability, or suggesting a different time.
Was there any, I'm sorry.
That bothers me. I'll be very truthful with you, because there are 3 or 4 people or 3 or 4 groups that want to use it, and when you have one person that has a work permit that they have to do, and being able to not do it, not be able to be at the meeting, it just doesn't seem right. And they represent a whole lot of kids from 3 and a half up to, 15 or 16, and I don't know how far they go. All I know is that a 3.5-year-old was there because it's my granddaughter came to it, and she wasn't a very good soccer player at the time, but she tried to play it, and and her representation was not given, and that just bothers me. Thank you very much for bringing this up.
Thank you.
I have a
Appreciate it.
question. Number one, do you have in any of your records anything granting you perpetuity rights or anything?
Sorry, can you explain?
I guess what I'm trying to find out is there any other agreement out there that we haven't seen that we're not privy to that?
Any other agreement? No.
Okay.
Like a current agreement with the city?
Or something from the past that granted you certain rights that, exclusivity or whatever? Anything like that out there?
No, we just had, Willits Youth Soccer had a contract for field access in the past, which expired last year.
But, all right, and then this question's for Dolores. So did you get her, did that,
I got a response from her saying that she would be available on 2 separate days. The messages I got from the other 2 people attended said that they weren't available on the day that she was available, so
and then you responded back to her
that we were having it on that Thursday.
But we couldn't, excuse me, but you couldn't come up with a 3rd or 4th day that everybody could make it?
Those were the 2 days that I had available that were given to me.
The day that I selected was one of the options in the original email. So I believe there were 3 dates offered through the original email, and I selected one of them that was provided, which was Monday. I believe one of the entities replied saying that they were only able to do, and they said a couple dates that were not on the original email that were offered to us. And so with a day's notice, the email response said, we'll be holding it tomorrow. I believe it was something like that on Thursday. And I replied that I am unable to make that, as I am working out of town, and I'm going to have to see if I can have another board member attend, which was attempted as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there another member of the public who would like to speak? Or do you have anything else that you would like to add to?
That is all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hi everyone, Andrew Hosford. I'm here representing the Willits Little League, which we're in session right now. So I had to leave practice to come to this. I do have a non-exclusive public recreational facility use agreement here that we've had, that did expire in '22, which did give us priority access to the grounds. This one takes that away completely. And what was expressed to me in the meeting was that the council was directing the city to do so. They didn't want priority access, which I didn't understand. It didn't seem right to me as a Willits community member that volunteers our time. We have a whole board that works year-round to maintain the league and get the league going, and we've invested tens of thousands of dollars into these fields that we utilize. And I think we're good stewards of it as well. We volunteer our time and labor and equipment to maintain them and all that type of stuff, to take that priority access away and potentially give it to other groups that are coming from other places that don't contribute in that same fashion. Just seems misdirected. I don't understand the priority for that, and it's difficult to kind of fathom what the need is for this new policy when we've already been under one. So that's it's kind of interesting. And then so the question was like, well, what's the incentive for us to continue to invest our time and money? You know, we're taking time away from our families to go and do this. We bring our families with us to help with it. It's fun seeing little kids out there with little shovels and whatever picking up grass, but it's kind of interesting. Couple of the meeting did seem rushed. There were two times presented. Luckily for me, I can do whatever I want, whenever I want with respect to work, and so I could accommodate those. Very short notice when the time was available. So, and I didn't know what was going on with Willits Youth Soccer. We don't communicate too much because we're kind of on both other spectrums. We've continued to accommodate people that want to utilize the fields, and we kind of have we have the whole responsibility. That's the other question I have is, like, if the city's giving out multiple groups have access and keys, and we're responsible for the maintenance of the bathrooms, we're responsible for locking of the doors, closing of gates, and many other groups have access to that. Like, how do you guys manage that? You guys don't have staff that come and lock the doors or close the gates or maintain the bathrooms or replenish them. And so how do we balance that equitably? All the groups have to get along and do that amicably. And is it really our responsibility to have to do that? Or shouldn't, if you're going to allow for this, shouldn't the city kind of step up and manage that so that way the volunteer groups don't have to? I don't know.
Your time has ended.
Yeah.
Yes, but your comments
Can I
have been
ask a
heard,
question?
and yes.
Do you have, is the kids that play on your teams, are they all from Willits?
So the Little League Bounds requires us to exclusively pull from Willits community. Now, Willits City directly, not necessarily. That includes if they go to a Willits school, then they're allowed to be able to participate in Willits Youth or Willits Little League.
So a 95490 address for them is
Yes.
close enough?
We do allow, there are some waivers that allow a small number of kids to come over from other places. Maybe their home address is Fort Bragg, but they have like split parents that live in different cities and that type of thing, but I would say 98% of the kids. And this year we have about 275 kids as the season's finally kind of finalized with registration. And then pretty much exclusively Willits, yeah.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your donated time.
Thank you, Andrew. I have a question, Brian. I feel like I'm getting confused on the question of priority. So from what I understood when it was first presented, the sticking point was that the various agencies, the various groups who wanted to use the fields didn't like the prioritization, the fact that some group might be prioritized over another. So the idea of striking that from this policy was to allow everyone an opportunity to apply for and be allocated some field usage. So we're not using the word priority anymore, but the intent was that everybody would have a chance to use the fields. Is that not the right understanding?
That's correct understanding.
Okay, so when Andrew, for instance, says that he's afraid he's losing his prioritization, he's not losing access to the fields, he's not losing his block of committed time that the city is offering the fields to his organization. He's just not having the word prioritization.
Or exclusive.
Or exclusive.
Yes.
Does that answer anything for you or clarify?
Well, I guess the fear is like, what if, we're serving all these kids, we continue to make this investment with time and raised funds from the community, and the other group could come in and make the same kind of request for one of the fields that we depend on. I don't think it's as much importance for baseball as it is for soccer, but it's still a concern that potentially could happen somehow. So without that kind of priority designation, it's just like, it's kind of just up in the air.
Well, from my understanding, the way it has been presented to me, if an organization puts in their application and says we're going to need 5 of the fields and a minimum of 4 days a week during our season, and there's room for, and other groups who might be needing the fields at that same time are saying we need 2 fields, and the city has enough fields to go around, they say yes, you get your 4, you get your 2. If there's some need to compromise and somebody needs to, have 2 hours on a field, that's what the city is going to attempt to do, to make it allocated fairly so that everyone has access when they need it. But certainly I wouldn't, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that anybody mid-season is going to whammy, oh, by the way, we're taking away one of your fields because you
One of the things that we have, very accurate depiction there, one of the things we have learned with the contracts that were in place is that they were in place, and then if there was a need to accommodate someone else, it complicated our ability as an organization, as a city, to see if we can fit them into the rotation. They were more at the mercy of
The group.
the other group. And what this policy does is it takes as much of that burden off the other organizations, and it says, okay, the city says, okay, on our master scheme of field allocation, there is a block there for 3 hours on a Thursday afternoon that we can accommodate. So now we're not putting that other organization has to go to the first organization and say, hey, can we utilize some of the field that you're not using? And that other organization, if you understand the exclusive use or that use contracts that have been in place, they have the ability to say no. And what we're saying from a staff perspective, that is not a good policy for public facilities.
So,
Because we heard that there is merit and beneficial interest to allow as many groups to accommodate as many kids and a diverse range of kids and a diverse range of interest on our fields. This is what that policy is attempting to do.
okay. And it's not trying to say specifically, this group can only have 2 and this group, I mean, you're going to be weighing how large an organization is, how many students it's serving, and try to allocate as much as possible.
Like I said in my earlier comments, is that if a group has 200 participants, we recognize that 200 participants are going to need a fair portion of the fields. The group that comes in with 20 or 30 kids, we can probably accommodate them a lot easier. We can squeeze them in at off hours or use a portion of a field, like split a field, if it's like activities.
So I know part of this, I think we were looking for giving preference to Willits organizations. So hypothetically, and I'll just use Andrew's, Little League has, let's say they end up having it, and if for some reason Fort Bragg Little League wants to use our fields, we wouldn't necessarily prioritize them.
The working theory on this at staff level is we would not, but we would try to accommodate as much as we can, because what we heard is there are groups that outside our, in the valley here that may want to use it. We have a good record of field maintenance. They're good fields, they're good facilities, and other groups have recognized that.
And I guess as part of that example would be, now way different if Fort Bragg comes over, but for the sake of argument, let's say the Oak Street Willits starts their own Little League and they only have 50 people in theirs. We would weigh that out, and since they're Willits residents, they want a shot at maybe using, we would probably say to Willits Little League, hey, we've got another group, but obviously you're the bigger entity here.
In reality, the deciding factor is going to be size and time.
And all of this would be decided at the beginning of the season when the applications are made for
Yes.
field usage,
Yes.
not mid-season for
Yes.
any sleight of hand
Yes.
switcherooning.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, so this was really supposed to be the public comment portion, not the dais portion. So would anybody else from the public like to come and speak to this issue? Lots of hands.
Let me, go ahead, Sabrina, you got it.
I have something here I wanted to reach. I'm Sabrina Rodriguez, but I just wanted to clarify maybe a point that wasn't made. How many months a year do we plan before the kids actually hit the field? And that's the key point with Andrew and I, as volunteers, we're planning all the months. So if our season is 3 months, 9 months out of the year, we're planning. There is no off season for those of us volunteers that are working to pull this off. It's a lot as a volunteer. I mean, I put in about 300 hours a year in volunteering for this organization. I don't have a child in the organization. I don't make any money off of it. I do it for the betterment of our community. All right, I'll go on with what I wrote. Mayor Connie, council members, and members of the community, good evening. I'm here in my advocacy roles, both as a volunteer of Willits Youth Soccer and an advocate of programs that ensure low-income children have a voice in policy decisions. As many know, I have volunteered the past 33 years with the Willits Youth Soccer organization. I've also given my time to Little League, Junior Giants, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and many other organizations. I'm vocal about supporting foster youth in our community. I was blessed in my youth to be surrounded by giving individuals. Volunteer organizations made a significant impact on the quality of my childhood. As an adult, I've had the opportunity to use my expertise for financial gain. Instead, I chose a path of volunteerism. I understand the need for programs that are inclusive of all children, regardless of financial means. I'm alarmed by the city's decision not to renew the volunteer-based local organization's agreement for field use, despite the fact that we had a good relationship with the city. We've been a good community partner for many, many years. The city doesn't have a parks and recreation program. Volunteers like Willits Youth Soccer and Little League are made up of 100% volunteers. None of us financially benefit. We give long, hard hours for the sole purpose of making our community a better place. Many programs have evolved over the years, programs have evolved over the many years we've had a healthy relationship with the city. There's always been a spirit of collaboration until recently. The lack of a contract renewal this past summer created a difficult situation. We were issued emails stating our scheduled practices or games would have to be moved or canceled because another organization perceived our usage, and sometimes arrived early and even laid claim. We struggled with grounds and restrooms not being cleaned between programs because overlapping programs were on the same fields in the same day. And there formed an uneasiness as coaches and players of our programs were solicited by other organizations. It was a stressful late summer, fall season at best. This policy does little to resolve any of the issues. The new policy in effect is a non-renewal of the contract, and it lacks the respect for the partnership we cultivated with the city over the last 40 years. Volunteers are hard to come by. Please keep that in mind. We're left with the dilemma of how to accommodate a growing need for field space. We respect that struggle. Sharing space isn't easy. I had my resolution, but I'll give it to somebody else to read.
Thank you for respecting the 3-minute time limit. I know it's hard, it goes by so fast.
No, if I have any volunteer wants to read my resolution.
Who else would like to speak?
Go ahead, you got the paper.
Good afternoon. My name is Alvaro Mendoza. I'm here on behalf of Willits Youth Soccer. So Willits Youth Soccer, I've been a part of it for basically my entire life since the age of 5. As council member Sabrina Rodriguez was one of my coaches, as her lovely husband was too. For me, like council member Sabrina was saying, I was one of those low-income families. My parents almost did not afford the money to sign me up for soccer, but luckily for them, they stepped in and helped me. And throughout this day, I use soccer as an example for children. So I've been playing for 10 years now, and recently last year I came back as an assistant coach to help out children, show what other coaches, as Sabrina helped me in the past, become, instead of taking bad roads in the future. So yeah, last year as we're talking about the prioritize, it was kind of difficult for me and my uncle as first-time coaches to find time and days to to release, like have practices with our players, and because of also field usage, sometimes we would have a day of practice, and then midway to practice another party would come in and take half of the field, which was like would take half of our practice session that we had planned out, which was very difficult at times. And yeah, so it's kind of difficult when like some parties just arrive when you have something planned out, just arrive and then just like be like, okay, we have this field at this time, so like we don't want to interfere and be like, oh well, we're here first, so like we just like sort of come to an agreement like, hey, we'll take this half, you take that half, and then we'll be out of your way in like 30-20 minutes like that. That's how we would resolve it. So yeah, like I said in my previous comments, I use Willits Soccer as as something to help children, like high school students. That was mostly what my team was last year, was a bunch of high school students. I use it as something powerful, like to like tell them to keep things out of bad ways. You know, use soccer as something beautiful. You know, make it a career if you want. You know, play college soccer, make a bunch of sports medicine help you out. You know, something like that. So, because that's what I was doing right now at Mendocino College. I played last year as a player at Mendocino College. Currently enrolled in a kinesiology program. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any questions?
I think so. Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public? Yes, Kenneth.
Kenneth Peterson. I'm actually not here in my Scoutmaster role. I am actually here just more as an advocate for the youth in our town. Well, a couple of things, and as much as I appreciate the acknowledgement that we'd like to have the fields for everybody and access to everybody, I also strongly believe that access to as many youth as we possibly can, and organizations, adult, youth, anything is very important. A couple of things that strike me as a former Willits youth football coach and a Little League coach. I put in a lot of my own time to maintain the field. We know that the maintenance public works department is limited to with their time and the efforts that they can put in. Also the city, the money that they can put in. Even just recently, I know that Little League put in 2 new batting cages to make their facilities not only better for the community, but better for the fields. We would go out months before the season to try to get the fields in as good a shape as we could possibly get them in conjunction. We always had a great, when I was part of it, great relationship with the Public Works Department, you know, as far as them maintaining the grasses and whatnot, and then we did a lot of the field work with the infields and things like that. Couple that with all of the time and money that these organizations put in just to maintain and make the fields better. There is also the thousands and thousands of dollars of equipment and things that they go into, and not only snack shacks, but field maintenance things that are all, and umpire stuff and gear and all of that gets stored there also. And I think that that something should be thought of in that respect too. These organizations have been in the town for 20 years. These organizations are probably the ones that even helped organize putting the fields together and getting them going. And so to take that away and make these organizations feel like they may be losing something, as opposed to this has been their home for however many years, with all of these other considerations with, like I said, gear and the time that they put in and the money that they've raised to make the fields better themselves. I'm hoping that doesn't go unseen with whatever happens in a priority, whether it is at the beginning of the season setting up, okay, what are the hours you're going to have it, so we have some availability elsewhere, might be advantageous to think about. So, thank you guys.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Silvera. I'm here on behalf of Willits Redwood Little League and also Willits Youth Soccer. I am a volunteer for both organizations for multiple years now. And I believe, as Andrew said, the issue is more with Willits Youth than Willits Redwood. And as being a coach for multiple years, I saw it a lot more this last year, like Alvaro was saying as well. 2 or 3 teams trying to share one field, you know, for practices. And I'm all for sharing fields. And I feel that we have such a large capacity of players that we need the fields that we have. And from what my point view from last year, the other organization did very well with the field that they were able to use. So I don't know how what's being pushed or whatnot. I was invited to the meeting today, so I don't know what's being pushed as to what fields who gets. But I definitely saw that we need at least the fields that we had last season for soccer, because so many of us were on all these fields. We were playing scrimmages like every practice just because we didn't have enough space to do, you know, one practice here, one practice here. I would just set up scrimmages so we could just keep playing. And I just wanted to finish what Sabrina was reading off to you guys. So we are going to start off right here where she left off is, you are left with the dilemma of how to accommodate a growing need for field space. We respect that struggle. Sharing space is not the issue. There are 12 months in the year. Baseball is using 3 as their primary season. Willits Youth Soccer is using 3 as their primary use. In addition, Willits Youth Soccer has been working for many years with the men and women's program to share space in the late evening hours and agreed not to use the fields on Sundays for their exclusive use. With that, I remember as well that a lot of the times when we were on the field, like adult softball would show up and want to use the field, but we had practice, so they ended up having to wait until we were finished and whatnot. So they also are part of the field use. We would propose the city give a group wishing to grow a program use a set number of months out of the year like the other programs. Junior Giants did just that for many years. Why is there a desire to allow any program to occupy the field 10 or 12 months out of the year? Overlapping field use proved not to work this past year. Policy on paper in a world where everyone plays the game with the same spirit, vision, and fairness can work, but fails when the team members have opposing objectives. My objective is to ensure local Willits kids whose parents pay taxes and desire to have healthy alternatives for their children to have access. Programs that do not seek to support the wages of administrators or marketeers, but rather give their talents to all. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to address the council on this item? Okay, I'm going to bring it back up to the dais for discussion. I think we have a lot to chew on here. Any council members have any comments or questions? Jared.
You know, I guess my hope and desire was that, number one, that we give Willits residents priority. I mean, you all voted for Measure K, I'm assuming those that voted for it. And one of the things we looked at was being able to support our fields. Because I'll tell you, I think we got in trouble as a city over the years because the city didn't have the money to do things, and so we allowed groups to kind of run the ball, so to speak, and maybe we didn't take care of things or do what we needed to do on our end because we just didn't have the staff or the money. And so as a city, I think we could always strive to do better. I mean, I think that's important. And in full disclosure, I was a coach with Willits Youth Soccer for, I want to say, either 3 or 4 years, and I was a volunteer. And obviously, my concern when this first kind of reared its head a couple months ago was that we had an individual who supposedly was not from the area, as how it was billed to me, and that they were, and that we were going to try and push our Willits kids off. And then I did speak with some folks with that program, and they were Willits folks. So there went that argument that they're not from Willits. You know, I mean, that presented an issue. I also recognize too that Redwood Little League over the years has done a lot down there. I mean, I'll be honest with you, one of the first things that came to mind is what's this other group doing to help the fields or helping out? Because you got folks like Little League who have done a lot of their own sweat out there, sweat work out there, and money out there. I have seen that. So that was my quandary with this, is I did want to make sure that our Willits residents got to use it, that somebody didn't come in or some commercial operation would come in and subvert our field use. And that's what I was kind of looking for this. But at the same time, that we allowed folks access at some point. Obviously, the wisdom of Solomon comes to mind. Obviously, there's no child that I'm going to threaten to cut in half here, but I know that some of you feel that way. And so whatever if we end up with this or not, depends on what the will of the council is. I would want to know that it worked, or not, if it didn't work, that we're in a position to revisit it again and go from there, because we do have long-standing partnerships out there. And this was hoping to rectify an issue where we were going to try and make it as fair as possible, so that it wasn't one of those deals where somebody got to run with the, run with the field or whatever, and claim that we were just letting so-and-so run with it, that this was supposed to have fairness. So those are my thoughts.
Okay. I would just like to say that when this was presented to me, it came up because last year didn't work, because everyone agrees that last summer was kind of a mess. And so the intention of creating a policy was to take that away, to solve that problem. And I don't know if we haven't communicated correctly what we're trying to do, and so it has seemed more divisive than it needs to be, because the intent isn't to take the fields away from anyone. The intent isn't to deprioritize your access or to underappreciate the incredible amounts of work that have happened for years on the fields by both of the organizations that are represented here tonight. That is certainly not my intention, and not the intention that I have heard expressed by city staff. So perhaps there's a miscommunication in the presentation of the policy that's created this discomfort, because I don't think that wasn't the goal. I don't know how to move forward at this point, because it seems like it wasn't a fair meeting if not all three agencies who are most directly impacted by the adoption of this policy were at the table. And I would like us to find some mechanism for explain this policy better, so that it reassures the community rather than creates upset, because I know that wasn't the intent of it. But clearly, we have done some kind of failing to make people feel that we're pulling the rug out from under them. That's Larry.
The two things that bother me is that all of the parties weren't at the meeting. And that's the thing that really bothers me, because I think that we could have worked that a little better. And the next thing is, I think that Willits, and I know that this is probably just bias on my part, but I worked here as a teacher for 35 years, and I always put the Willits kids ahead of whatever. And if there's people that are coming in with half this and half of that, and I'm not saying that that's what it is, but I'm saying that the little kids and the underprivileged kids are the ones that rule me, and you have to give them a shot. That everybody has to be at the meeting, and everybody has to be happy, and everybody needs to do what they can do to make it happen the right way.
Madge. Thank you, Larry.
I agree with several of the comments that have just been made, and in particular, Greta, I'm trying to figure out how do we resolve this in a way that does reassure people that they're going to get a fair deal, and respect and appreciation for all of the years of volunteer work and all of that have gone into this. And I just don't think we're there yet. So, and I also agree with Larry that, one group being absent from the meeting, that is pretty significant. And it's a group that we all care about. And not that we don't care about the other groups, but, we don't want to craft a policy that is going to be perceived or implemented in a way that people don't feel is respecting the needs of their constituents and all of those children that are served by this. So I know it's kind of the timeliness of having something in place is important also, but I just think we need to maybe go back to the drawing board one more time and see if we can present this and craft it in a way that shows that when the staff come to, it's going to be a certain amount of difficulty when we have more requests than there is space during the seasons. But I trust our staff to come up with a way of doing that that will be as inclusive as possible. But I don't think the policy makes it clear how that would happen.
Thank you. I also did want to address one of the comments I heard was it was something to the effect that why should any group be able to use the fields 10 to 12 months out of the year? I don't think that's anywhere in this policy, and that wasn't any intent that I've heard at the staff level. There's no effort to give one organization use for 10 months out of the year. I think the other problem that we're running up against is that let's put the cards on the table. The two organizations, Willits Youth Soccer and Mendocino Soccer Academy, want to use the fields at the same time. We can't say one group gets them from July to October and one gets them from October to January, because that's no good. That's not the season. You both want it at the same time. So the city's in an impossible situation of trying to give everyone access. But I'm sensitive to the fact that staff has already invested a lot of time and they really don't want to see this come back to them. But I have to agree with Larry and Madge that at this point, I don't feel like it's been finessed enough. I know that we do feel under the gun to get this done before the season really begins. It's already started for Little League, but I just don't think we're representing the community if we try to adopt something that doesn't have community support. I'm sorry to say.
Then that's fine. I just want to be conveyed to the council that I think if we're going to continue on this path of universal usage, we're going to be at this impasse. So what I'm asking for is if the council wants to revisit the design emphasis that went into this policy, is do we give special consideration to what you want to consider legacy groups? And should they be under a different fee schedule with a different criteria? I mean, I can massage this and repackage it. We're still going to be at this point of exclusive use compared to universal use. You're at this point, and I don't know from a staff perspective how we can rechange it, repackage it, and then present it to the council that it doesn't come out to the same point where we are.
Well, we want universal use, but not exclusive use.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Right? I mean, we want everybody to have a chance at least some of the field,
and that's what,
more to the largest organization.
Basically, that was the approach that we sat down with when we were drafting this policy. We looked at various options.
Right.
What I'm saying is, staff will present something in a reasonable time frame that's going to be very similar to what we have now. And so we're going to hear the same comments, you're going to hear the same considerations, and you're going to come back to staff and saying, what are we going to do? And what I'm saying in return, I need some guidance in, do we move away from what the emphasis here is being universal, address needs as they are submitted, allocation requests, or do we basically reserve in advance designated time? And that's kind of where these three organizations potentially are asking for.
But everybody has to be there to hear it.
And let me be clear on that. And I know this is probably going to come out not sounding very positive, but the third group, or the group that Willits Youth Soccer, throughout over the last couple of months, invites have been extended out to them. They were asked to attend any different sessions or come down and talk to us. Maybe not in the group setting. That was requested by the council from the last February meeting. This opportunity that, we've been talking about this, we never had an opportunity where Willits Youth Soccer said, hey, we missed that meeting, can we have a catch-up? So I guess the question here is, how we were here. We didn't move, we didn't relocate ourselves. We were available to answer any questions. So I guess there was an obligation on that other group to come forward and say, hey, can we be brought up to speed? I'm just putting that out there. We're available.
I think I kind of came to this meeting knowing, what's that phrase, that a negotiation, a true negotiation where it's fair, not every party gets what they want. And that may be the outcome with this, that happens. Now, I'll be honest with you, I came kind of with the idea that I would probably vote for this, and I may still add this down the road, but I'd want to revisit it in a year to find out, how did we do as a city? How did the groups work with this? You're not going to be happy. And I don't know, Andrew, on your side, whether there'll be a Mendocino Little League that pops out of the woodwork that wants your field use or not. I don't foresee it, but you're kind of in a different group. Maybe it's the softball or whatever that pops in or that, but I have never heard any gripes down there in the time, other than maybe amongst teams themselves where, and that was on you. That was on you, Boo, to kind of make those people happy, not on us. But, and I'll tell you, when I coached soccer, I was kind of at that point told to find some field space and squeeze it out where I could. And I'll be honest with you, we were up in Brook Trails at one point at the park course, and because I had the little kids at one point, and trying to find places to practice, and so at times doing that. So I would just like an opportunity, again, one more revisit. And I'll tell you, Willits Youth Soccer, you may not like what you hear. It may come back in the same form, but
I do think it's also important to acknowledge that one of the issues that we've had, I think, that I've heard in the discussions, is that it's a sticky wicket because Sabrina has been engaged as the representative for Willits Youth Soccer. But there's a conflict of interest, which everyone addressed and saw tonight, and that's why she left the room. So I do think that whoever comes from Willits Youth Soccer, it can't be her because of the conflict of interest. It needs to be someone else representing the organization to come to the meeting. And what I would like to propose at this point is that we go back to the drawing board and we have one final meeting with someone from each of the three agencies to make sure that everyone has a chance to be heard. It comes back, I recognize it's going to be similar to what is here, and then we will take a vote on it. Everyone needs to have an opportunity to weigh in, and like Larry said, or like Jerry said, it's probably not going to be what everyone loves, but everybody should get something that they can live with. I can't open it back up to the public because we've asked Sabrina to leave, and it's not fair to have her miss out on another chance. The public did have a weigh-in tonight. We will have a weigh-in the next time it comes onto the agenda, which I'm hoping will be, if not at the next meeting, then a month out, so that you have sufficient time to schedule a meeting where all three parties can be there. And then let's get this done so that we can wrap up for this year and not have the problem this summer that we had last summer.
I just want to tag on what you just said regarding the conflict of interest that Member Rodriguez has. And I just want to be very clear, throughout this whole process over the last several months, she has been very cooperative and understanding about the potential conflict of interest, and she has purposely stayed away from the dialogue process. She has not used any influence that she has as a member of the council to access myself on how this policy is being drafted. So I just want to make that as a record for full disclosure.
Thank you. I also wanted to ask, is there anyone here tonight from Mendocino Youth Soccer Academy?
Ian Fitzpatrick could...
I have a kid that plays.
Okay. I just wondered why.
We did receive a staff email from the individual, Ian, this afternoon, or this morning. Basically, he agrees in concept. He's upset about some of the fees, which we didn't talk about, but there is a fee component to this. But once again, we talked about it before, where the fees were really, really low, just because this kind of foot in the door type of process. But essentially, he agreed in principle.
Okay. Match.
Well, I was just going to suggest if any of the groups want to go through the wording and look for the things that you think are sticking points and suggest what might help. It really comes down to sort of the nuts and bolts of how do you craft something that achieves the goal that we're looking for, which is inclusivity, but there will need to be some decisions on, who gets what, when.
There's going to be give and take. All right, I feel that we have spent sufficient time on this topic tonight. We have many other topics on the agenda that we have to keep going on. I'm sorry we didn't get an answer, a definitive action this evening, but we will, and we will handle this within a month.
Can I just say one thing for the public? Some of you want to say something, but like the mayor said, we closed that part. Feel free to email us.
Yes.
That way.
Or reach out to any of us in person.
Yeah. So that way you're not waiting till the next meeting. If you've got some sticking points, I'm willing to listen. Just give me a call or leave me a voicemail and I'll get back to you.
And thank you to everyone who spoke tonight. It takes sometimes that, we're not comfortable getting up and talking in a room full of people, but you all did a great job and we appreciate hearing from you. It really helps.
If you send it to the whole city council, all of the members will get your correspondence if you go through the city clerk.
But I do not have email, and I do not have any of the other stuff. I have a telephone with my name in the book. And if you want to talk to me, you can talk to me and I will call you back. And in Keith's case, might be a week later, but I'll be there. I'll give you a call. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I need to you guys, can I thank you guys one more time for having Annalee tonight and all the support you give our troops. Thank you guys very much.
We so appreciate you being here.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. You don't have to stay for the rest of it. Have a great night. Good job. All right, Brian, verbal reports.
Let's wait for Member Rodriguez to return.
Yes, thank you. I think Andrea went to...
Did anybody get her?
Yeah, I think Andrea did.
Actually, as we do the transition, yes, that would be great. So it's actually a verbal report with a document. I'm proud to present. I'll just wait for it.
Thank you, Sabrina.
I am proud to present the, is this the first newsletter?
It's the first one.
Okay. The first.
That's what she fixed it.
No, in the history of the city.
Oh, as far as I know, yes.
Okay. You're looking at the first presentation of a city newsletter. That, once again, checks one of the boxes that the city council put on your goals to increase public engagement, public communication. And one of the strategies we looked at was producing a newsletter. And the goal here is to produce it and compose it on a quarterly basis up front and try to draft as many elements into this as possible from the department reports, and each edition maybe highlight one department. Maybe they'll have more than a small section, maybe a full page to describe highlights and other items. Okay. It's a draft. It's a 98% draft. But basically, this has been a labor of love by several staff members, myself, Taylor, who listened to my ideas and kind of changed them around and made them work, and then proofreading and content editing from Kathy here. We're proud to do this. This was really a fun project. It was kind of an after-hours project. It was kind of tagged along with our logo, our website revamp. We believe this is a great platform to get our message out and convey that to the public. So we also have a newsletter sign-up sheet that members of the public can request. We're still working out the kinks on how we're going to distribute it. Mailing is going to be rather expensive, but we'll definitely have copies available at City Hall and other city facilities. We're going to have it available on the website, probably have it on Facebook, and maybe other public facilities throughout the city.
It's packed.
Yeah, it is.
I'm impressed with like how much you squeezed in there and how many different things you touched on, so.
I feel like it makes
Well
the city
done.
look very exciting.
Yeah. I was just thinking, we got the For Optimist books inside the Willits Weekly. I wonder if the Willits Weekly would value us as a good partner and insert them, maybe?
There's a possibility. Like I said, it was tough to get to this point. Looking at different versions, were we going to do one page? Were we going to do it monthly? Or were we going to do it annually? So we settled on quarterly, settled on a 4-page format. We didn't think we were going to have enough for one page, and as you can see, it's packed. Obviously, we are proud and happy of the things we do within the city, and we want to convey that to the public. And like I said, this is one of those formats. We're revamping the website. We're trying to get Facebook posts out as often as possible, and feel-good stuff, not just kind of public service announcements or doomsday type announcements as well, but good stuff. And we like to give shout outs to our crews as they complete projects. So take a look at it. Like I said, there's some little corrections we need to make, but I'm glad, and I know the rest of the staff is proud to present this to the council and then the public.
Madge.
Well, just same thing, really great. It's excellent. I think it's a wonderful addition to getting our communications out to the public. And I love the idea of asking if Willits Weekly would put it into their, just stick it into their next edition or whenever it's ready. And I was going to suggest the library and some of the restaurants that have places to put things.
The museum,
yeah.
We're looking at maybe some kiosks or little stands at the parks, the fields, the schools. We want to get it out there, and hopefully we get some feedback, and good and bad. But
So when you say this is a draft, it is the one that's...
That is the content, the format.
Okay.
But we're
Eagle Eye
gonna change
Jerry
Vice
here quite a
Mayor
few
to
things.
Jerry.
Yeah. Small things like that, but
You got a promotion.
But the hard points are fixed.
Oh.
The hard points are fixed,
congratulations.
and the format's fixed.
I think the fact that Willits Weekly hasn't been able to find a reporter to cover council meetings, and so that there's been a real dearth of city news in the paper.
I'm right here.
Oh, you're here! Thank you so much. I was just talking to Jennifer 2 weeks ago, and she said she didn't have anyone coming to the meetings.
Willits Weekly or Willits News?
Willits Weekly.
I'm with, I think, Willits News with Jody.
Oh, okay.
Well, welcome.
Well, welcome. Thank you for being here.
There you go.
Willits Weekly has not had someone here, and
Yes.
I would think that they would welcome this as a way to convey Willits City news.
Yes.
Okay.
And Willis Hughes hadn't been here either.
Yes, so welcome back. Thank you.
Excellent.
So we got media coverage. So that's what I got. Like I said, it was an effort that has been going on for a couple of months now. Sorry for the delay, but like I said, it was kind of an after-hours project, and Taylor likes to stay late, unfortunately or fortunately. But like I said, it was a group effort. A lot of input went into it. The design, the colors mimic what's in the revised logo. A lot of the content has been clipped and pasted from some of the reports and updated. But we're, definitely trying. My intent of this is keep it fresh, and maybe every once in a while we'll put a little, Easter egg or something like that in there just to, keep it.
I see the
Go.
flowers on each page.
Yeah. Taylor could be devious.
And the ladybug.
Yeah, so.
Is that a flying fish over City Hall?
It's a puffin or something, I don't know.
Excellent. Excellent work. Thank you. Thank you for all who put that together. We'll look forward to reading it.
Excellent.
That's what I have.
Okay, great. Thank you, Brian.
Yep.
We're going to move on to item 9, department recommendations. These are action items. The first is the adoption of a Mendocino County services agreement for animal control services within city limits, and I believe, Chief, you are presenting tonight?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
I'm sorry, hold on just a second. What is it there?
You here or here?
I'm here, 9A. We
Oh,
just
okay.
finished with the...
Okay, good. I have some questions about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Eagerly anticipating the questions. Good evening, everybody. This is before the council for your agreement to accept the services agreement with the County of Mendocino for animal control services. This agreement, or contract, if you will, is actually pretty late. This should have gone into effect last July, and what happened was basically fault on a little bit on the county, a little bit on us, on me, in trying to get this going forward. The animal control services transitioned away from the sheriff's office last year, and the county established basically a separate animal control department or animal control unit. It's kind of been going by both names. So the contract was kind of hammered out based on the old contract we had with the sheriff's office, and it took me a while to kind of go through it and see if it was still something that we wanted to continue. Obviously, we don't have any animal control services here within the city or part of the city services, so it kind of looked back on the background of the services that were provided previously. I have spoken several times with Mr. Molinari, who is the head of the Animal Control Department, and he has been on a hiring promotion and gotten a couple more bodies into his department, into his unit, which lends itself to additional services for us, for them to be able to respond, from Ukiah still, and give us some time here within the city. So this agreement will go through the end of this fiscal year, so I'll probably be back here in a couple months and going for the next fiscal year. Once I take into account and consideration the services that have been provided and whether it's still something good for us. Although at this point I don't see any alternative option. We still get a lot of either outright animal calls for stray dogs and cats or injured. So we do have a need to continue the agreement. So before the council today is the services agreement, the resolution accepting the agreement. The total fee is $22,124.80, which is on par with the way it's been for the last few years, maybe with 100 or plus or so added. Also, as part of that, in order for because it's no longer part of the sheriff's office, for the animal control department people to enforce any codified animal regulations, we have to accept Title 10 of the Mendocino County ordinances and incorporate those into the Willits Municipal Code so that those things can start being enforced as well. So that's also part of this package. That's pretty much it from my part. If you have questions.
I have a quick question. If this is overdue, have we not had animal control services within the city this year?
No, we have.
Okay.
We've continued that partnership, and they've just been going on our good word that we will, at one point, approve this.
Okay. Sabrina, then Larry.
Do we still have a kennel that whenever animal control is available, do we still have officers that will respond if there's a dangerous situation and animal control is not available? We still have that facility?
We have 2 kennels at our public works yard that our partners in public works basically resecured for us last year because we had a couple of animals over the months or years that became escape artists, so they were able to get some holes or be able to figure out how to do the latch, but so they redid it. They're good and strong again, and so we put them there and on hold until the animal control can respond. To answer any pending questions, we do check on them regularly throughout the day and night if necessary, and make sure they have food and make sure they have water.
Okay.
Larry.
My thing is on Exhibit A, which is page 8. and number 2. And this goes way back, way before you and about 3 other chiefs was in your position. I used to have a dog that I used to walk at 5:30 in the morning, and that doesn't actually stop at this, but this leads into it. And we found, the dog and I found, we walked the town, and when people get up in the morning, they just open the back door and kick their animal out and let it roam. And if you're trying to walk a dog with a leash and this kind of stuff, he's combating these dogs and whatever from, the time he starts walking and whatever. So anyhow, this has been kind of a bad feeling with me all along. And number 2 says, at the time that Monday through Sunday from 8 till 4:30. However, the county may modify the work schedule at any time without permission from the city in order to meet special needs. And I'm not saying that we need to at least know if they're modifying the schedule so that we can function.
Yeah. We're more in regular contact with them throughout this past year when Mr. Molinari took over. He really wants to be a good working partner in this, not only with us, but I imagine with Ukiah PD as well, and the sheriffs. We haven't found that to be the case at any time since this transition has taken place. But I imagine if it does, that they would notify us.
But once it's in writing, then this is the way it is. And what I'm saying is, at least I want it put in here that at least you would tell the city that you modified the schedule, and then we can work with it from there. Not that we would make the schedule, but we need to know. Either you or Brian or somebody in the city needs to know that the schedule is not from 6 to 4 or from Monday to Sunday. It's something else.
Is this definition of services something that can be negotiated, or is this what's provided by the county and it's this or nothing?
I defer to the chief. He's the one who has the most interaction with the county. We haven't had an issue since they did the transfer of administration of the program.
Yeah. Okay. And like I said, we're more in contact with them. We call them not every day, but every day, other day or every few days, either on an animal call or something we have, or just to see if they're available.
Okay, I want to bring this up because Jerry was around at that time. Every year I would vote no on it, and it's just because of the time. Because I asked them to get up at least once a year at 5:30 in the morning and come and walk their dog or drive an area to see all the dogs that were kicking out in the mornings, and that you had to fight your way back down to the park and back. And Jerry knows that because he was in your spot at that time.
I've heard.
So I think the language that's in there, Larry, is actually the same language that was in the previous agreements. And the reason that's in there is exactly because after you complained enough times, I did call even the old animal control, and then it became the sheriff's department. I said, can you at least come up and drive up? The answer I got, to be honest with you, was that they did come up at 5. They said, we had coffee and we didn't see any dogs, but we came up, and they did tell me that they did come up on occasion. But that was to give them the latitude that, because it's a set amount of time. So if they come up at 5 one day, that means they're not going to hang around the next day. And so I found that we got a lot more service than the set hours, because sometimes on their way through, they would pick up animals, and I don't think I got an extra bill. They just kind of said, well, you know what, we passed through today and picked up the dogs in City Yard on our way through, even though we'd exhausted all our hours already.
Yeah, and the agreement doesn't, call for itemizing after any kind of set amount of pickups or responses or anything like that. It's just all inclusive in the contract, in the agreement.
I do have one more thing, and maybe I'm missing it, but it used to say, and it says the county is entitled to collect and retain all fees and fines provided in services in Exhibit A. I don't see anything about licensing, and it used to actually say that they got to keep all the licensing fees. And I'm not sure if that's an omission on their part or I'm just not seeing it, but I think the value in this has got more to do with that we might still have to take, like if a dog bites somebody, we might have to take an incident report, but then they do the follow-up and the rabies stuff that's required in the reports to the state for the rabies stuff that they're not trained in. And another question too is, does Ukiah used to have their own animal control, are they now with the county?
No, I believe they still do. I may have misspoken on that one.
Oh, okay, because I know that,
Talking about the
I believe
sheriffs.
it was us only at one point and the county area, and I thought Fort Bragg had their own animal control, and they took it to the shelter, and then this is also...
I don't think Fort Bragg's had an animal control, at least at the time that I was there, they didn't, because our officers used to bring, or our CSOs used to bring the animals to the
county
shelter.
But, and then, we also have a shelter agreement in addition to this also?
That's part of the, that shelter is underneath the
No,
animal
but
control
we used to have a separate agreement for services, and then we would have another one for the shelter costs, because I know that they would hit us up.
No, I haven't heard of that.
I think they may have combined them because only one organization is doing it now. We
Well-
don't have one with animal
okay, so-
control on Plant Road and then one with the SO. It's all with the Plant
So
Road.
we're getting it for the same price, because we used to get another, and I know that they were, basically, we were paying for cost of the shelter, amortized, et cetera, and that's disappeared.
It's still kind of unclear.
We should
Okay.
probably make sure though, so we don't get hit up with a second bill at some point. Right?
Jim, you had? I had a couple questions, Chief. It looks like this contract, this form language was adopted from agreements between the county and its contractors. And there is not a signature line for the city, there's a signature line for the contractor. I would think that should be changed to the city of Willits. And then also, at the bottom of page 1, it says the compensation payable to contractor, that should be county, shall not exceed $22,000. So that's the final sentence on the back of page 1, and then those changes to the signature line.
I had seen your prior email regarding the contractor, and should be the city. I did change that, but maybe I didn't get it to Dolores in time. But I did change for contractor company name, the city of Willits.
Well, it indicates City of Willits within the services agreement, but on that signature line, on that signature page, I think is what Jim's talking about, right? Where it says contractor company name.
Right. I think that should be the city of Willits, and it's incorrect at the bottom of page 1 where it says the contractor is to receive $22,000. That should be county.
Right. Okay, so does anybody else from the council have any comments about this? No. Okay, I'm going to open it up to the general public. Would anybody like to comment on this contract with animal control services for services within City of Willits? Yep. Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I would like to move with the suggested language from the city attorney.
A second.
Okay, so you're moving to adopt the contract with the changes made as indicated by Attorney Jim Lance?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. May we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Strong?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Stransky?
Yes.
Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mayor Condon?
Yes, thank you.
And I'm deeply hurt, Larry, because you voted no when I was chief.
Well, the Zaraga for the win.
He's my neighbor. Is anybody from the public that came up to speak? They may be gone now, but...
Those are mine.
Oh.
All right, our next item is the consideration for adoption of the State of California Governor's designation of applicant's agent resolution allowing the city manager to apply for public assistance and recovery funding. We will hear from Dolores, our city clerk.
This is a requirement from Cal OES so that we may request assistance with the request for public assistance for the repair of the damages that were caused during the storms in January. it's a requirement to have a designation for who can do this request
It actually opens up the opportunity for other funding reimbursement for overtime for staff, the extra on-call, the materials, supplies, damages. Like we heard from Supervisor Haschak, the feds are pretty active within the state right now, and they want to release funds to make communities whole again.
Any questions from the council? Open it up to the public. Would anybody from the public like to comment or have questions regarding this adoption? No. Okay, bring it back up. Would anyone like to make a motion? Madge?
I'll second.
Make a motion to approve the designation of our agent for the purpose of applying for public assistance and recovery funding.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Strong?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Stransky?
Yes.
Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mayor Connie?
Yes, thank you. All right, next up, with authorization to purchase two 2023 Chevrolet Silverado 4x4 pickup trucks. Scott?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Scott Herman, Public Works Director. What you have before you tonight is the second year of a 3-year plan to request the authorization to purchase two 2023 Chevrolet Silverado 1500 4x4 pickups with regular 6.5-foot beds, which were different than the two you guys approved in May of last year that had utility bodies. And these two are being purchased again from Elk Grove Winter Chevrolet, who has a state contract for Chevrolet for fleet management vehicles. The purchase price for each one is $52,659.59, and it's one for each water and wastewater department. And the total is $105,319.18. Below you have here the adopted goal policy. Even though these aren't electric power or hybrids, they are a smaller displacement motor with 4-cylinder engines that are acting in a better role for the environment. What I did reach out to, and Winter Chevrolet, they do have electric vehicle fleet that are Silverados. The going price right now is $75,000 per vehicle.
No, that's
So
for
that's just
the
the base
3-quarter, right?
That's a base rate, yeah.
That was the
That's not no
3-quarter and then
options.
the, yeah. So, yeah, and that was, and I was talking to Scott after I heard several comments from staff, council members about, can we consider EV vehicles for our service fleets? And we would love to. So the order book just opened on these vehicles, on these Chevy EV service vehicle utility trucks, basically pickups. They were $79,000, $80,000 a piece, and we're not quite sure. Obviously, we can't afford that for the two. We're hoping in time, as we rotate through the fleet, that price comes down, or additional assistance through grants.
Will the purchase of these allow us to retire some of the older models that we have? And in which case, how old are the older models will we retire?
The oldest one we have is a 95 GMC in the wastewater department now. We also have a 97 there. So as we, next year is the 3rd year, and if we need to go further than that, we will. But the idea is to either Public Works, we'd like to reutilize them if they need them. If not, we will possibly do a salvage.
Decommission
them, or if no one purchases them, take it to the junkyard.
Okay. So I guess just trying to get at purchasing new vehicles means we'll be able to retire older ones that are costing us more to maintain. So the cost of these new vehicles will be offset by the savings from no longer having to maintain older vehicles.
Correct.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Larry.
I'm disappointed that you buying Chevys instead of Fords, okay? I just want you to know that as the Ford guy. And, but I'm just funny, it's okay, this is wonderful, but I thank you for that.
Jerry.
Quick question, from looking at this, you're buying them outright, you're not financing them, is that correct? And it's state bid, so we're getting the better price on this than anybody else?
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, as much as I would love to go EV, this is not the year, given the shortage and the expense. If you were the public buying a truck right now, you're going to probably pay over manufacturer suggested retail price right now. Correct. So I think we're getting a good buy, and I'll be honest with you, I think I would love to see when we do buy an EV that we buy one and then you get to see how it handles in light of the power outages. I like the idea of EV, even personally I would love one, but I've been kind of glad that my vehicles are gas when we run into power outages until that technology is more stable as far as the charging stations, et cetera, out there. Then I'm a little concerned that when you have vehicles that are supposed to be out there in an emergency.
On another note, we also don't have the capability or the facilities to accommodate EVs right now in the public works area.
Yeah.
Anybody else on the council have questions or comments about this item? Okay, open it up to the public. Anyone have comments about the purchase of these 2 new Chevy trucks, not Fords? No. Okay, bring it back up. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll second.
What is your motion exactly?
That he can buy Chevys instead of Fords.
And Larry made the motion.
We got a mixture.
I think we need to put that in the minutes.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
A motion and a second to authorize the approval of the purchase. Dolores, roll call.
Councilmember Strong?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Stransky?
Yes.
Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mayor Condon?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
All right, next item is an update on the electrical vehicle charging stations, Speak of the Devils, in the city parking lot between Mendocino and Wood, and we will hear from our city planner, Taylor.
And there is a PowerPoint.
There's a PowerPoint.
Pictures.
Big surprise.
With the new logo.
Well, that's kind of a nice segue. Thank you, Scott.
Set it for you.
Use the down buttons to change your picture.
Okay. Good evening, council members, Madam Mayor, members of the public. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to talk about EV charging stations because it's been a while since I imagine you guys have received an update. I apologize for the delay. For those of you who are perhaps unfamiliar, the city owns 2 ChargePoint dual-port Level 2 electric vehicle charging stations. This is not a rapid charging station, but it is considered to be the universal charging station that a lot of other municipalities have. They can accommodate any U.S. car or any Canadian EV charging car, including Teslas if you have your own personal adapter. So a lot of people can use them. The stations were installed in 2018 with a grant funded by Mendocino Land Trust. The grant funded for installation of the charging stations and for a 5-year extended warranty, which covered things like replacement of parts, and for staff time for ChargePoint representatives to come out and do some troubleshooting. Currently, the stations are in good working condition. I did check today and I saw that 2 new drivers were charging. So I verified they're working, and they have provided for a lot of environmental and economic benefits since installation. To date, the EV charging stations have prevented nearly 38,000 miles driven by an average gasoline-powered vehicle, the equivalent of 15,226 kilograms of greenhouse gas emissions for the equivalent carbon sequestration of 390 trees grown over the course of 10 years, which is pretty substantial. Over the last 6 months, we can see that each session length averaged a little bit over 2 hours, and both stations combined averaged 16 unique drivers over the course of 6 months. Unique drivers totals, that is new drivers each month. So if you have a driver that continually comes back, he's only counted once, he or she. And a high unique driver count is usually an indication that people, perhaps from out of town, tourists, are coming and they're parking for about 2 hours and likely walking around downtown, and thus Ideally, they'd be stimulating our economy, shopping local, eating local. So 16 to me sounds like a pretty high number. To help determine, oh, I missed a slide. Well, sorry, Dolores, I added one in there. To help determine whether or not there was a trend of the charging stations being used more or less over time, I compared 2020, 2021, and 2022. And with that slide, you would have seen a slight U-shaped curve, a bell curve, that showed that the stations are used a lot more in the summer months, likely due to tourism or visitors. But the curve overall between those 3 years really does kind of a bouncing mechanism. So these statistics are a little bit incomprehensive. But if you looked at it, I put a red line, a trend line, and overall it does appear that throughout the years the stations are being used more, which is a trend that we would expect to see and hope to see. So in 2018, we, as council, we adopted a combination of fees, including a 50-cent initial fee or a minimum charging fee. So if you're plugging in, you're at least going to pay 50 cents. An additional 25 cents per kilowatt hour, which is an energy usage fee. Some cars require more energy, some require less. And a $5 per hour fee that takes place after 30 minutes after your car is 100% charged, which is an incentive for drivers to move their cars so others can use them. It was assumed or estimated that this combination of fees would recover or at least reduce the city's spending. And the fees were estimated by projection of PG&E energy costs at that time, which have, as we probably noticed by our energy bills, have been slightly going up on trend, about 3% each year. And it was also estimated by frequency of charging usages. So how did we do in our estimate? As you can see, I compared 2018 all the way up until 2022, and you might notice that there's quite a few red numbers, meaning that the projections were negative. So on average, over the last 5 years, we are losing about $227 per year, which might not seem substantial. However, in August 16th of this year, our 5-year extended warranty is set to expire, and that warranty covers a lot of additional expenses. So without that warranty, we would be expected to lose an additional $1,637, estimated by how much staff time we could expect, cost to replace parts, things of that nature, meaning it is suspected that we would lose $1,864 if we do not extend that warranty. And I was able to get a hold of a ChargePoint representative today that reassured me that it is a very high probability or likely chance that we can extend the warranty at the time that our ChargePoint membership expires, which is the same date of August 16th of this year. Next slide. So as part of a preliminary research to give us a bit of an overview, I took 2 other charging stations locally. One is very similar to our charging stations, and it's at Mendocino College Willits campus. They also have a ChargePoint vendor. And the Safeway Shopping Center with the Electrify America vendor. So that one's a private company. And as you might notice, each one's a little bit different, and that's because the vendor or the governing agent, whoever installs the charging stations, gets to set the fees. And you can choose different connection fees. You can choose your fees based upon kilowatt hours, so energy usage, or like Mendocino College, you can choose the fees based upon time. And you can even choose a membership fee, like a discounted or prorated membership fee, similar to what Safeway Shopping Center is doing. So there's a lot of different options. You may also note that the Mendocino College campus has a $1 connection fee, whereas ours is 50 cents. In the last 2 years, or last 3 years, coming down the pipeline from California, there's a lot of initiatives, mandates in state legislature, including Governor Newsom's Zero Emissions by 2035 Executive Order N7920, which calls for the elimination of new internal combustion vehicles by 2035, which is not too far away, just around the corner. By setting a course to end sales of gas-powered and diesel vehicles by 2035, this order establishes a target for the transportation sector that helps put the state on a path to carbon neutrality by 2045. Furthermore, by setting that target date about a decade in the future, this hopefully gives automakers time to scale up their manufacturing of zero-emission vehicles, also known as ZEVs. And as it also provides a further impetus for providers of charging and refueling infrastructure, electric utilities, and others to begin now to plan to meet this initiative and this goal. After compiling this research and this preliminary overarching view and summary of the charging stations, I have 4 recommendations for council that you might want to consider. The first recommendation would be to further research and reassess the fee structure. As I stated, there's a lot of different options to consider. There's a lot more charging stations that we can compare ours to see if we're in an economically feasible spot with the fees that we have chosen, and to make sure that we are accounting for things like inflation, for energy costs rising, that sort of thing. So there's lots of different fee structures that we might want to consider and research further. Another recommendation would be to consider incentivization strategies or signage to help get more customers to the charging stations. Other ideas might include restriping, repainting, or any type of thing that pulls other drivers off of Main Street. You can easily find the charging stations using your phone or apps, but the signage for Main Street is lacking. It's not the greatest. I haven't been able to see any EV charging station signs pointing in a certain direction. So for some people it might be hard to see. Or maybe they weren't thinking of stopping, but once they see a sign, they might pull over to Wood and Mendocino Ave. So that sort of thing could be worth consideration. As you can see from that picture, one of the parking spots is designated for handicap only. And there's also a sign that says if you're not handicapped or if you don't possess a placard, I think it's a $350 fee. However, in California, for parking spaces that are dual purpose, meaning handicap accessible and EV charging station, the primary goal is to get people to use the EV charging station. So we shouldn't be having signage that deflects people from using it if they're not handicapped. So some municipalities have adopted a use last approach, having signage that indicates if all the other 3 spots are used and they're inaccessible or they're out of commission, then you could still park in that spot. So that would be worth consideration, because this spot I found in comparison to the other spaces, it's not utilized as much as the other charging port in those spaces. So that could be the reason why. The council may also want to consider installing additional EV charging stations, perhaps in different locations throughout the city, to address the future need, future mandates governed by the state, and future use, because by 2030 it is suspected that California will need over 1 million chargers to accommodate nearly an increase of 8 million drivers with EVs. So these are all worth consideration at your advice, and this concludes my presentation. So I welcome any questions you may have.
Jerry?
Is there any thought, or is it ever, I mean, what keeps, let's say, obviously the handicap one, but what keeps somebody from just pulling in that doesn't have an EV? Do we have plans to maybe update our parking ordinance to allow for citing? So if I park my big Ford truck in the EV station, I mean...
I'd hope you wouldn't do that. Well, there is signage that says EV charging only.
but
I don't know if that would be enough to persuade.
When we were having that issue at Safeway with people with non-EV vehicles parking into the stations, we researched it, and the vehicle code indicates you have to have signage that indicates for EV vehicles only, otherwise you will be cited per the section.
Oh, there is a section then?
Right,
Okay.
and so once that was up, we gave the violators like a month or so to kind of get used, because they've been used to it for it being an additional space, so we gave them a month of warnings, and then we started citing people, and
Okay.
it's rarely a current.
I wasn't sure if there had to be a separate ordinance in that. And I'm for recapturing our costs. I don't know if the additional usage at this point, but it warrants us dipping into general funds to do it, but I would love to see us explore any grant opportunities to add additional ones, especially if the state's going to amp it up. I could see that they wanting to encourage that. And I would definitely want to re-up our service agreement to protect us, because I'm assuming that it has some sort of span of life, and eventually they kind of like when you eventually you can't even get a car warranty anymore.
Right.
Yeah,
The
so-
service fee, or the service,
Life.
it's 5 years. So it's similar to the warranty. So every 5 years you have to renew it. We have a subscription, it's the commercial subscription. So I asked the ChargePoint rep, and he said that's the best one for a local municipality of your size. However, a lot of other municipalities of our size do not choose the warranty. And he said it would be a good idea because it's a really good warranty, he said. I cannot verify, but he recommended getting the warranty, but he did state that many other cities choose to opt out of that, but they have the same renewed plan. So I forgot to note that.
I'm sure Kenyon can work on those things, right? So you're all good?
Any other
No,
council?
we have had to rely on that warranty once or twice already in the past. We've been glad that it was in place. We got immediate tech support. They switched from a 3G to a 4G, I believe.
Right, and that was going to be over $10,000 to have the service technician come and replace that part if we hadn't had the agreement.
So it's the mechanical parts, as they are used by the public, you're dealing with moving parts, things that can be damaged and
I mean, we want to encourage the use, but I think it's one where...
Service agreement.
I think until we get to the point to where they're on every corner, and then at that point, I'm sure you have to send somebody off to EV fixer school or something.
Madge, did you have a comment?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think probably at this point, with our staff not wanting to deal with the service directly, that probably having a service agreement, if it's not out of reach economically, is a good idea. These are level 2 chargers. There's no interest, or it would be exceedingly expensive, I'm assuming, to try to go to the level 3 chargers that are faster.
That was another question that I had for the representative. I was only on the phone for maybe 5-10 minutes. He did say it's worth considering, because often you'll find that the amount of usage that you get increases drastically, and that would cover for the cost of implementation, because they are much more expensive.
Yeah. I really would like to have a sign on Main Street, maybe a couple signs on Main Street that say EV charging station, because, I mean, obviously a lot of people do it on their little apps, but a lot of people, as you say. Not everybody, and they might also be coming for a pit stop, and then they go, oh, there's an EV charging station. Oh, we can
Maybe
use
I
that.
should stop.
Yeah,
I'll grab a
and then I love the idea that they have, an hour and a half or two, and they can come and have a eat in our restaurants and go shopping and whatnot. So I think it's a great idea, and I do think we should look at our rates. It looks like there's enough flexibility that we would still be, comparable to other charging stations. I try to keep up with the inflation and recoup most of our cost. But I love just having them and making sure that we're, offering the public a chance to recharge their EVs there.
Sabrina. You have the 4 bullet points over there, and I just wanted to quickly give my opinion on the one, reassessing the fees. Time is money, and I personally think that if we're not getting enough use to really invest the time into to looking at the rates when there wasn't that much out there and they're not all being overly used. I drive down Mendocino Avenue probably 6 times a day, and I see maybe 1 or 2 cars there. It doesn't look like it's heavily used, and we know that there are pumps at Safeway and there are other places, and they're not always full, so I would hate to see us invest too much time into focusing on the rate structure. I do think we need more signage. And then I think your number 4 was consider having more pumps. Again, I don't think that there's a need just yet. Mm-hmm. But I do like the idea of the warranty so that we're not at risk. But I didn't see a proposal for what was the cost on the warranty?
I don't know.
Yeah, that was as you were talking, I was thinking, what is the cost of this warranty?
I'm waiting on further information, but I
Okay.
have heard that the financing department often takes up to 2 weeks to respond to inquiries.
Okay, so we'll look forward to that.
I just remembered a question also is about the handicap marking spot. Have there been significant number of times when there were, where that somebody was turned away because they didn't have a handicap sticker and weren't able to get their charging one? Because if it's legal to open it up to any drivers and not require the handicapped, that might be worth doing. Because we do have other handicap parking
Right.
spots.
How would you know that, though? I think that would be how do you quantify? How do you figure out whether or not someone couldn't pull in
what I'm
space? Maybe if all the other chargers were in use at the same moment?
Yeah.
That would give you an
Are there
indication?
times when all of the stations, except for the handicap one, are in use? I don't know that.
Oh, I'm not sure how would, the method of quantifying the data that comes through ChargePoint is not, I wonder if there's a way to quantify that. It would be difficult.
Okay, maybe that's not worth it.
Down the road when we see them busy.
Let's get them more
So
busy.
my comments are, I would support reassessing the fee structure, charging people more, because I would like to see a reduction in the expense to the city. I would also recommend installing new signage to advertise the stations. I would support number 3. I would not support number 4 at this time. I don't think there's enough community demand, and we already hear enough complaints about giving up parking for stations that no one uses. So that's my comments. Although I am supportive of EVs in general, I just don't know that the city needs to be offering that at this point when other private agencies are certainly able and are already doing it to fill that need.
I think if we increase the use here and by signage and whatnot, then when there's a demand that we're not meeting, then we could consider that.
I'm just not convinced that any of these steps that we take will increase it so drastically that we'll be creating more need. But I think to me, the important thing is at least trying to control those costs, knowing that electric costs are going to go up. I would also support the warranty if it's a reasonable price. Anything else from the council?
Any chance we could kind of, and I'm not saying go to extreme efforts, but is there some sort of like a Yelp sort of thing on these sort of things that is out there that people leave comments that way we can get some feedback from the EV users? Because I know that a lot of folks have been watching a lot of stuff on
Facebook.
Yeah, well,
There is Facebook, yeah.
they're leaving us comments to say, hey, more signage or whatever. I'm sure when Larry buys his Ford Lightning and is out there using his app to find his charging station,
That'll be the day.
You'll be a lot older than you are today, I'll tell you that.
There was one comment on the ChargePoint, our page, but it was only in regards to the nearby restaurants. So nothing in regards to the infrastructure, fees.
Oh, okay.
Did they like the nearby restaurant?
One of them they liked, the other one they didn't seem to like.
So it was a Yelp for food?
Yes.
Great. Would anybody from the public like to make a comment? Yes, please come to the podium and announce.
Taylor Perry.
How do you spell it?
Taylorperry.
Okay, my question is, with the dual purpose use with the handicap and EV, and saying that if all other spots are used up, that somebody without a handicap can take it,
Yes.
how do you enforce that though? Because say all of them are taken up, and somebody comes up and parks in the handicap, somebody else pulls away. So how would you stop a police officer from writing him a ticket when he becomes present, there is a car with an empty space, but there's a car taking the handicap. So how do you discern that?
These are things worth considering.
Show them the picture you took on your phone.
When you brought that up, I was thinking the same thing, that, somebody could pull in, everything else was full, and then we pull up and one or two have left from the other spaces. There's no way for us to know that that was the last one.
I don't think that would be like, if you're an attorney, I don't think you'd be able to hold that up with water in court, because someone will be able to easily argue that.
If it's dual designation, doesn't that mean somebody that's not handicapped can park there regardless? It would just be rude to park there if the other three were open.
It's more a question of morals of the driver who chooses to do so. A lot of cities that I was comparing, they have nothing, no handicap accessibility signage in itself. It just says EV only, also handicap accessible. So I would be curious as to how other cities are enforcing that type of thing, or whether or not there are issues where things don't stand up in court.
I don't know that it's quite an issue yet.
Yeah, I was about to say that too.
I have never driven by this city parking lot and seen all 4 spots being used.
So that's the answer seeking a problem, I guess.
But with the governor wanting to transfer to all electric vehicles by 2035, correct?
Yes.
Eventually this will become a problem.
Yeah.
Or at least, well,
New vehicles sold by 2035.
new vehicles sold and manufactured by 2035. So all existing gasoline and diesel powered vehicles will still remain.
Well, yeah, but you're still gonna have a lot more EVs on the road.
Yeah, a lot more.
I think we're going to cross that bridge later.
Yes, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Kevin, did you have,
City planner?
and Kevin, if you could come to the podium and announce your name.
Sure. We'll ask her what she said. Are you gonna sit over there?
I guess so.
I'll just turn around. Kevin Copperfield, Willits, resident. I just wanted to thank you for the presentation, Ms. Perry. I learned a little bit about what we're doing out there in the charging station. Just a couple questions. I'm all for growing trees. Was that a net, taking into account how the electricity got there, or was that not a net? I know, tough question, maybe, but
Oh.
I'm just curious.
That was the data that was generated by ChargePoint, and I believe they used the net carbon sequestration and the equivalent of the amount of fossil fuels that we have prevented from escaping into the atmosphere.
So it could be a net, okay.
I believe so. I would have to go back to the data and make sure.
Yeah. And then, once we get to 2030 and all these vehicles are on the road, and maybe well before that, I don't know a lot about charging stations. I don't have an electric vehicle, but it's hard not to hear about these things just around. I think the standard's going to start being charge your vehicle in less than an hour. And if we're at 2 hours, I'm not sure how many people are, and I'm not sure what's going into Safeway, but if somebody looks at the pump and says, oh, it's going to take me 2 hours, some may do it because they're going to shop, but I think a lot of folks, by the time there's that many vehicles, they're going to want to in and out. So just something I was thinking about. And there's going to be there'll be competition. We're competing against private industry, and I think when I saw your hourly charge, we were the highest. So unless all the fees together come out differently, but hey, I'm rooting for us to, to be able to use them. Just some observations as, you're going through it. That's it.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. All right, so I think your presentation was strictly informational with a request for some input from council. Have we answered your questions or given you some food for thought?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for your presentation and for the PowerPoint. Okay. All right, we're going to move on to item 10, department monthly reports. These are in the packet, included in the packet. Staff works hard on these to let us know what they've been up to in the last month. They're available to read. I will go through the departments and see if any of our department heads have things that they'd like to add to their written comments. We'll start with Kathy in the airport.
I do have 2 things to add. As you can see, our deadline has passed to our airport consultant, which has been exciting. We have received 2 responses to that we have scheduled a meeting for Monday for staff to review and move forward. We're anxious to get this taken care of. And then my second update is regarding the third-party assessment for the airport, to have somebody come in, make sure we're doing things correctly regarding FIA and Caltrans guidelines. I have received 3 phone calls in the last 2 days from, retired airport managers and pilots. So I'm anxious to talk to them and get moving on that. That's a big deal. We need to have somebody come up and assess it that isn't part of all of us and give a biased opinion. So we're excited with those. Thank you.
Thank you. Any council members have any comments or questions for Kathy regarding the airport? Nope. Okay, we're going to move on to community development.
Thank you, Mayor. Earlier, Supervisor Haschek noted the fact that there is the rail trail meeting happening across the hall at the community center tomorrow night from 6 to 8 p.m. A little clarification, that's a joint meeting. That's a dual effort being put on by the state as well as the city. So while there certainly will be an opportunity to speak to the overall Great Redwood Trail and the master planning effort underway, there's also an opportunity to encourage the Willits residents to attend to get an update on the Willits Rail with Trail, our local segment of the Great Redwood Trail that's currently in the design phase. Our segment will be about 1.6 miles and will extend from East Commercial Street down to East Hill Road. So we'll be sharing an update with the public on that. Certainly looking for some good feedback as we move through the design phase on that. A little bit of rumor control also. I've sort of, in a way, I've come to understand that there's a misconception that our trail is going to interfere somehow with the skunk train existing excursions. That's absolutely not the case. Our trail will not interfere with that. This is a rail with trail. We will be alongside their trail. We're required to be at least 10 feet away. We have been in communication and been working with the skunk train throughout the process, going all the way back to before we even submitted to the grant, to coordination meetings. We have provided them with the latest designs, and that relationship has been fruitful, and everything points to the skunk train support of the local segment of the trail. There was also a rumor that the city is taking private property to support the trail. This trail is located entirely within the GRTA, formerly NCR right-of-way. Certainly it does cross over city streets at locations as it goes from East Commercial down to East Hill Road. But we're not relying on private property to support this trail. I could speculate as to maybe where those rumors came from, but anyone who has those thoughts, certainly you're able to talk to me, Dusty Dooley, I'm the Community Development Director, or please, I hope you can attend the meeting tomorrow night. We are also in the process of updating the land use element for the general plan. We have a public open house next Wednesday, March 29th, again here at the Willits Community Center at City Hall. We have an afternoon session and evening session. The afternoon session is between 11:30 and 2 p.m. And the evening open house will be between 5:30 and 8 p.m. There's a website that's been set up to learn more and to provide some feedback and interact with the project. That's willitslandUseupdate.com. There is a survey that we're asking residents to take, and it's really in regards of what would you like the future of Willits to look like. So maybe you think we should have more recreational fields. That would be something that you could point to, and we would look to make use of this project to help identify appropriate locations within the city to come up with a plan to recognize additional athletic fields. Housing, business development, other public services, warming centers, this has been a hot topic. So this land use element is really at least a 20-year vision for the city. This is an incredibly important exercise or project that is one of the key documents that guides the future development and vision of the city. So I strongly encourage folks to participate in the process, and there will be other community meetings, but the next one is coming up next week on Wednesday. I think with that, you have the updates from the department, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Sabrina has a question for you.
Yeah, I just, for the community and myself, what do you envision the 2 hours from 6 to 8? Like, say I want to pop in at 6, will I miss anything? Or if I want to pop in at 7, what can the community expect trying to get here in the evening?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that question. So it's designed so that if you make it there at 6 and have to leave at 6:30, you'll have an opportunity to interact with the planners and the team and get your questions answered, provide input and ideas. There'll be tables set up where you can interact, or there'll be sort of static boards with information on it where you can post ideas to it. So if you're maybe a little bit shy and don't want to interact with the tables, you can certainly walk around and have that interactive experience. If you show up at 7, you're going to get to have the same experience. So it's not a start to end thing. It's designed so that you can show up as you're able to and have the same opportunity to provide input as you would otherwise.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good question. All right, I think we're good there on community development. Thank you, Dusty. We're going to move on to engineering and Andrea.
Good evening. I just wanted to give a couple of key highlights for some projects that are in the works. The railroad trestle water main relocation project, the plans and specifications are done. Last details with MOUs with property owners, and so we're expecting that to come forward for an award, and construction is anticipated likely in May at this point, for the later half of May. West Mendocino rehabilitation project, the plans and specs are targeted to be completed in April. We're anticipating bringing the permission to advertise for bids forward in early April. Annual pavement preservation project, the plans and specifications are underway, and it's looking like that will be constructed later in the fall. And then one last update on that, on projects, the contact tank for groundwater project is currently out to bid, and we're anticipating bids due back in April 5th. So that will be moving forward as a council meeting. And then one last update. I wanted to share the happy news that we received 2 separate grant awards from the Highway Safety Improvement Program to upgrade or install traffic safety improvements on a variety of streets throughout town. So the total award amount is $416,070. So that will be a project that will be developed as the allocation comes forward. We'll need to work with a consultant to design the project.
And we'll hear more about them as the plans go through. Great. Thank you. Badge.
Yeah, I have a question. I mentioned before that the California Public Utilities Commission has changed the rates for solar installs, that it's going to become way, way less favorable for solar arrays. And the deadline to get the paperwork in to commit to the existing rate, which is the favorable rate, is April 14th, which is just around the corner. I know we have plans for solar installs. You don't have to have them already installed. You have to have the paperwork all filed. And then you have 3 years to actually do the installation. Is there any way we can take advantage of that?
I appreciate you bringing that up. I didn't include that in the updates, but I should have. We're working on an application for several sites throughout town. We've been working with the group to supply them the information necessary to put those applications together. So we are, as best to my knowledge, we are on target for the 4 applications for different sites, and one of them being the wastewater treatment plant, which would be the largest by far.
Wow, okay. And then that would commit us to trying to do that within 3 years, obviously.
Yes,
but
it would, and it's not probable that we would have all of these projects come to fruition, but the application is not very costly, and if we get the application submitted, then we'll have the opportunity to develop these projects.
okay, great. I'd hear that. I'll probably talk to you later, or not later tonight.
Thank you, Andrea. All right, we're going to move on to finance. Manny.
Yeah, so we're continuing down the line of actually starting up Springbrook implementation, and so part of that is developing a new chart of accounts. We're approximately halfway through that at the moment, but there's plenty of other things that have to be developed along with it, which is a pool cash system. The workflow process associated with it, policy development associated with that, as well as cleanup of the current system as it stands right now. So right now we're currently still hammering away at Fund 690. Got about 2,000 individual line items that have to separately and individually review and find out whether or not it's where it goes and where it belongs. So it's kind of like untangling a really big mess. And so just kind of hammer away at it and such. So that's about it.
Well, it's exciting that you're getting ready to implement new software. That'll be a huge improvement. It'll be exciting.
We actually have the sandbox actually created right now, so we're able to get into an actual, a space created for the new system. So it's kind of, I've already signed in, looked around and everything, poked around in an empty area. But yeah, it's there, and we're going to start up fairly soon.
Cool. Very good. Anybody from council have questions for Manny? No? Okay, thank you. Police Department. Chief, have you got anything to add to your written report?
Nothing to add to the written report other than on a personal note, Dr. John Gale and his wife welcomed a baby girl to their family. Their third daughter, so he's a bona fide girl dad.
Nice. Lucky guy.
Mother and baby are doing well. Everybody's healthy, and I believe she came in at 5.5 pounds or so, and over 17 inches. So, but yeah, other than that, we're happy about that.
Extend our congratulations to him and his wife. Yeah. All right. Anybody have questions for Chief? No? Okay. Public Works. Ken.
Good evening, everyone. Just a couple of quick updates on some things that didn't make it into the report. I'd like to talk a little bit about the Prop 68 grant. We're moving forward with the shade portion of that project, which involves a shade canopy at the skate park and 2 other shade canopies at the soccer field to provide shade for the spectators, athletes that are transitioning onto the fields. We also ordered and have now at the yard ready to install another set of bleachers for that facility to accommodate more spectators. That way you don't have parents from rival teams stacked right on top of each other. That doesn't work sometimes. So
You've got one set of bleachers for a big field.
That allows people to spread out a little bit. Give other teams that are waiting for their turn to use the field some place to sit, be out of the sun. So we're excited about that. We've identified a sole source contractor that can provide the materials, the engineered stamped specs for the project and do the installation. So we're waiting on the revised quote. We have seen some increases in prices for materials over the last year or so in most industries. So we've opted to target the bigger projects on that list and try to accomplish those. And we might have to cut some of the smaller items, like some of the benches and some furniture items, just to get those larger projects done. But we're focusing on the shade now and hoping to get that underway soon. So I just wanted to bring that back to the table. I don't know if you guys have made it down to the south end of town in the last couple of weekends, but we got the lights on the arch back up.
Yay.
She took a bit of a beating over this last storm season, but Paramount Sign Company out of Redwood Valley came up and we provided traffic control, and we got the lights operational on the majority. There's still a few small pieces of neon that they have to have fabricated to replace. So they'll be doing another visit in about a month whenever they can get that product for us. They were kind enough to replace the flag while they were there too. So the arch is looking sharp again. We're proud of that.
Will we have to worry about future rain shorting it out again?
Some of them is just their electrical parts that time, wear and tear can cause failure. They put a new seal on one of the cabinets where water had been getting in from wind.
Okay.
And they just did an overall evaluation of the arch, and they addressed any issues that they saw that needed attention.
Very good.
And provided traffic control, everything went smooth. So we're happy that 9 o'clock on a Wednesday morning, it's a busy time of day, but the crew did a great job with the traffic control, and everybody coordinated and worked smoothly together. So we also installed the city's first illuminated stop sign. So we've got that on Central, where Central joins East San Francisco Street. It works on proximity radar, so as a vehicle approaches, the sensor picks it up and the lights come on. So if you have a chance to drive down there and check that out when you're looking at the arch lights later, please give us your feedback.
Cruising Willits style.
It's a big city stop sign in a small town, but it was recommended. There's been some traffic collisions on that intersection. It's a pretty well-used thoroughfare. A lot of people, that's their shortcut to avoid Main Street. So it was a good place to start. We'll see how it holds up and how it works, and open the potential for future installations if that's the route we want to go.
Thank you.
Just an approximate, what's the cost of one of those signs?
The unit itself was in the ballpark of about $2,000. A typical stop sign itself is around $200. This is just essentially an LED kit that goes, it's a trim piece that goes around the outside of the stoplight. You're paying for the radar, it's solar powered. So there's batteries, there is some maintenance moving forward. As the years go on, the batteries will need to be changed out. It's sort of a test pilot. We'll see how it goes and how it holds up, and if it saves lives and it brings attention to that intersection and keeps people from shooting over it and damaging the property on the other side of it, then it's a minor investment on our part for public safety.
$2,000 will seem like a bargain if you're the homeowner that has the car launched into it yearly.
Exactly. Yeah. Will we be collecting data on that intersection to be able to measure how?
We'll be monitoring it. We might have to do some sort of, maybe we set somebody up there for a few hours one day just to monitor it, see. I've used it several times myself. I drove through a few times, went around the block.
Nerd.
Make sure that it's comfortable before I share that with you guys. I'm going to tell you all about it. Go by there later and have it. But it seems to be, even in daylight, it really brings attention to that stop sign. You'll see some other cities and municipalities that have them everywhere. And it's just there's a cost point in the initial setup, but it could be something that serves the public and takes care of that traffic issue. So it's experimental at this point.
That was a community concern that was brought forward, and so I just want to thank the city for their responsiveness and taking care of that instead of waiting for, sometimes we as small government can take a while on projects, so thanks for the responsiveness. And one last question about the flag, because we hear criticism about how often the flag is changed. How often do we change the flag?
Typically every 6 months to every year, depending on the condition of the flag.
Okay,
It's
every
just-
6
it's
months
not,
to a year.
It's not in the most ideal location for, the height of our boom truck only gets us up to about the bottom of the arch. And we take our brave soldier and we send them up the top. And you always have a sense of pride when you do something like that, when you restore the flag. That's an honor, and in a lot of places that's reserved for the chief or for the president to go out and lower the flag, raise the flag. It's an honor to be able to provide that. But there are times when it's just too slippery and too dangerous up there to get somebody up there safely. So we're looking at other options. But I know in my time here with the city, I've been here 8 years now. I've made the climb a couple times myself. And we're looking at safer, better ways to do it because OSHA regulations are changing. And if we get a taller boom truck, that would help because our working height is only, like I said, it's the very bottom of that arch.
I'm already hearing next budget.
Oh, an EV boom truck.
An EV boom truck, yeah.
But we looked into some other options. The fire department might be approached to help. It just involves, we're working in Caltrans right away, so there's coordination with them. Set up a large traffic control and spend half a day getting it all in place to change the flag for 5 minutes. So typically it's at least once a year.
Okay.
It fell to a lot further state of tatteredness this year than it has in the past. And that was just, the weather wasn't, usually it's every spring and sometimes in the summer too. It's just, you're fighting the UV and the high winds we had this year really just whipped it up. So we got up there a little earlier. Usually we do it right around the 4th of July. And that's usually our time frame. So annually it's minimum.
Okay, it's just good to know when people ask us.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Any questions?
Anybody else? Questions for Ken? Nope. Okay, moving on to utilities. Scott, you're up.
Yeah, just wanted to say the reservoir levels are impressive this year. The first year that since I've been here, 11 years, that we haven't had to put the boards in on March 1st. Usually it's April 1st, and there's about a foot of water going over it. We tried lowering it in between, just releasing more the mores to get them in to capture it, but we weren't able to keep up. So we backed off of that, and typically, and ironically enough, we submitted a spring operations plan to the Division of Dam Safety last. Tall Tree worked on it for us to, instead of calling in a variance every year and having them do the paperwork for early installation, we tried to get a permanent. So it would be a permanent installation from March 2nd to September 30th every year instead of April 1st to September 30th. Prior to the talk about the Obermeyer Dam going in place. But yeah, we're looking good on the waterfront at this point. Just to touch on the night flushing, started last night on Main Street. We have about nine crew members out there. Looks like that they come 3 nights a week, or 3 nights a year. And they essentially come in, work their regular shift, go home for a couple hours and come back in, and it goes anywhere from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. And then come back in and do it, because it's a short duration. So we'll be complete with that tomorrow night, hopefully. And then we will move on to the side streets from the south end of town, moving on.
Last night I did see them out working late, and then I thought, I wonder if I'm going to have brown water. And closer to where they were working, we didn't have brown water, but over here on Commercial Street, we had a faint brown water, which was interesting, that further down the line.
Yeah. It does. So the area that they're working tonight is from Beckler Creek Bridge intersection there, and it goes all the way to California Street. That's the second run, and then tomorrow night they'll finish up from California to Glenmark Storage, just at the very end of town in the water system.
Thank you. Any other questions for Scott? As always, the department reports are greatly appreciated and full of handy tidbits to impress with, fun facts at parties.
Now we've got this.
Great, newsletter too. All right, we're going to move on to city council announcements, communications, and reports. Larry, do you want to start us off?
I have been approached at different times about the city having things to tide us as a city over if we would ever have a major earthquake or war or whatever that's coming down the line. And people in the community are concerned about this. And they're wanting, I want them to know that I'm available to listen to what they have to say. And I don't know how many people are out there, but there are people out there that are very concerned with the status of the city as far as taking on a major event. And I just wanted everybody to know that I'm available for that. And if anybody's interested in it, other than the people that have contacted me, I want to know if the council is interested in it also. So I'll ask you in another couple of weeks or so. Jerry.
Well, I just want to say that we've talked about updating our emergency plan, and that's part of that. And I think that would be a good thing to, if nothing else, get an update from staff, how we're doing on that or where we're at. Because
well, everybody, if we have a major thing, if you could, have enough food for, the amount of people that are in the city, and I don't know how you would regulate that, but I mean, there's answers to all of these things, but it would really be nice if there was enough, that you could go someplace and maybe get a hot meal or something once a day or whatever it would take. And especially, people are more and more concerned now with the crisis that is looming out there between Russia and China and the United States. And anyhow, it's just something to think about if you don't have anything else to think about. But I just think that I'm interested in it very much, and there are people out in our community that are concerned about it also. So I would just like for everybody to kind of think about it, and I'll bring it up again. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any reports from any committee meetings that you attended? No. Okay.
Oh, I did go to the water meeting, and you want me to talk about it?
Go ahead, Larry.
We had the somebody from
Pine Mountain?
Pine Mountain come and give us some information on water for them for emergency service, emergency time, and also the Indian reservation out southeast of town, and I don't know exactly where it is, but out there, and they wanted us to come up with enough water for 100 houses, but that's their concern, and we'll just have to talk about that on the water committee. And what else, Jerry?
I think what we did is we authorized, I guess, for an MOU of some sort to begin talks with Pine Mountain so that they can proceed with an application for a study. Is that correct, Brian?
Yes, so this is an item I think it has been presented to the Water Wastewater Committee in previous sessions. So there's two different items. There's one with Pine Mountain's request, and then there's also one that has come forward from the tribe, which was previously presented to the city several years back, and they're revisiting it. They're pursuing some grant opportunities for themselves that they would fold into the city. So basically, the committee advised staff that was present to prepare an MOU that doesn't lock the city into any type of long-term commitments, but just basically starts a process that says that we would agree to help, in this case, Pine Mountain and the tribe, the reservation, to pursue exploratory steps in how this would play out. there's grant opportunities out there, there's other funding sources. All we want to do is bring back this document to the city council and have the other parties be sign off on it as well, acknowledging that there's many steps involved, but we just want to start the process with an MOU, just defining roles and responsibilities.
I think the MOU allows them to seek the funding to do the study that they would need. It doesn't lock us in per se, it just
There's no commitments, no obligations that you're going to be committing to with the MOUs.
It's just a weird reason to, to think about. And Jerry and I are both in that, and we've talked about different things, and Brian has brought up some very interesting things, I think. Thank you.
So it'll come back to us as a council.
Like to add, with that MOU, it's allowing them to seek technical assistance from the state.
Thank you. State Water Resources Board.
State Water Resources Control. At the very beginning of
And I think that in the tribe's case, they're looking at residences and a community center, because my concern was commercial use when we want to make sure we can deal with our own issues in town. But at the same time, this is just a technical assistance grant for them to do. With Pine Mountain, it allows them, again, technical assistance to eventually, to explore the option of maybe connecting to our system in case of an emergency, and then having the city, maybe possibly having city staff maintain that connection up there. So
the tone of these MOUs would be pre-nuptials. Basically, just laying out what we can expect as we move forward.
And also would advise us, if they basically, they're going to do the legwork, and it would come back to us eventually if they are successful in this, to let us know what we'll have a chance to weigh in, and our concerns will be answered.
Is this Sherwood a tribe?
Yes, it's a Sherwood band. Yes. They have, I guess they have the property over here next to Blosser. They have the property up on Sherwood Road, and they have this on East Side Road. They have some houses out there. Yeah, but
yes,
yeah.
on East Side Road between Center Valley and East Hill.
And
About 30 modular units up there.
Yeah, and I guess they explained that the residences out there are through another group, but it's basically the tribe, I'm not sure if they contract, but it's basically tribal land, but it's basically managed by
A housing consortium.
yeah.
Larry, is that it for your reports?
For this.
Okay. Madge?
Well, I just wanted to say to Larry that I also am very interested in making sure, and what Jerry said about our emergency preparedness plan. I haven't seen an update of that for a long time.
We've been working on it, and a component of it is our flood response plan, which is kind of in this, trying to get it out from the consultants, and I'm looking at that, Steve.
Yeah, because, clearly the weather alone is disturbing, and there's other ways things could go bad with emergencies, and we really want to make sure we are as prepared as possible. So I agree with that point. Yesterday, there was a meeting of the Land Use Element Advisory Committee, kind of in preparation for this public event that's going to happen. And we heard from Rod Milburn about some of the constraints, especially on water, but also sewer and other infrastructure constraints on development and where it should go and how much we can accommodate. And the water issue was the biggest point of interest that people are concerned about, based on the State Water Board's authorization of how many more hookups we could accommodate at the, given our current infrastructure. It doesn't give you very much to work with for a 20-year plan, put it that way. It does give us a few hundred more equivalent dwelling units. So anyway, I thought that was a really interesting presentation, and then they reviewed some of the other land use constraints that were brought up before, and I'm sure a lot of stuff will be available at that public forum, the open house, and it's also available at the website, which they're constantly adding information to that, willitslandUseupdate.com. So that was one thing. The most important thing happening tomorrow morning at 10 is, for the first time in, is it 4 months or 5 months? Since October, the Mendocino Solid Waste Management Authority, MSWA, or Mendo Recycle as it's nicknamed, is going to meet. On the agenda, we have 2 new members, so there's 5 members total, and 2 of them are brand new. And we're going to elect a new chair and vice chair, and we're going to look at finances for the last 5 months and for the whole fiscal year. But on the agenda are the 3 contracts for basically privatizing the actual provision of the household hazardous waste services that MSWA is supposed to be providing to all of us. That would be privatizing it to C&S, and the second contract is with the city of Ukiah to be the administrative oversight of MSWA, because we don't have a general manager and we need somebody, advising and providing us with that managerial help. And the third one is a contract for C&S to use MSWA's actual facility for $1 a year or something, so that they have a facility that's set up to handle the hazardous waste. The unfortunate thing is, none of those 3 contracts was in the packet and has not been provided to us yet. So the meeting tomorrow, I think we're going to kind of get a verbal run through of what they're proposing, and then they're going to extend the meeting to the following Thursday. So there'll be a continuation, at which time we will actually be able to look at these contracts. And another important thing on there is paying Ukiah for the work that they have done already this year and in several previous years to try to manage this transition from handling it in-house to privatizing it. So that's, I know we've brought this up before, that's been really frustrating that there has not been any meeting since October, and the staff, the very tiny skeleton staff, have been keeping only a very minimal operation going, basically only in Ukiah. So it's not acceptable, what has been happening, and I'm really eager to see the details of what will be provided by this private company under this contract, and make sure that our outlying areas are being adequately served by our hazardous waste program.
So I followed up, Madge and I had a conversation, I followed up on her concerns, I contacted the city of Ukiah, and I was reassured that these contracts would be presented, discussed at tomorrow's meeting, but unfortunately, like Madge noted, they weren't done in advance. And Madge is right, we're a little concerned why they had so much time, and this has been a well laid out plan. According to Ukiah, we don't know why it was done this way.
Yeah, originally they were talking about having this whole transition done at the end of 2022, at the end of December 2020. It was supposed to all be done by now, and here we are, basically 5 months later. There was one little red flag in the staff report about the contracts that doesn't include the contracts, so we haven't seen it yet, but it said something to the effect that C&S would provide all the services that they could within the income from the tipping fees. And that was a little red flag for me, because that gives them an awful lot of leeway to just do almost anything and say they ran out of money.
We'll be anxious to hear your report after the meeting.
Yeah.
Is there anything from EDFC?
They met, and I was not able to attend a couple weeks ago. I think it was pretty routine stuff, and they have continued to manage a big loan portfolio with pretty successful participation and paybacks. So I feel like it's being very well managed.
Thank you. Sabrina, do you have anything?
Yeah, I wasn't able to attend the meeting in person, but I was on the phone. Most of you didn't know. I was driving my car and listening, and because you can't drive and unmute, you didn't hear me, but I was there. The takeaways that I got from it was really the city's going to have to, like Madge said, we're going to have to invest in some water infrastructure, or we're going to have to consider the possibility of more groundwater use. And then in thinking forward about that, I was thinking about some of the concerns about monitoring the wells and such, and thinking, okay, if we think that groundwater might be where we're going as well, then what do we need to put in place in order to be able to confidently say, you know, we're going to have more hookups and we're going to use groundwater, and this is our justification for why we feel like this is a good choice. And then there was some conversation about how many hookups are potentially available in brook trails, and how if people were able to access those hookups in brook trails, how quickly that would draw down the available number, and in other outlying areas and development and stuff.
That was related to sewer.
Actually, you're right. That was directly related to sewer, not water, but still impacts. So just lots of information, and it all seemed to come back to water, like Madge said. So
I just wanted to mention one more thing, and that is Sonoma Clean Power meets the first Thursday of the month. So I already reported on the one at the beginning of this month, but the next one will be April 6th, and I intend to attend that one also.
Great. All of our other meetings are next week, so next week we'll be busy.
Yes. Jared, did you have more?
Yeah, I guess LAFCO doesn't meet till the 3rd of April, which is that first Monday. And I'm going on Friday up to Arcata for League of Cities, and then I did attend the Public Safety Policy Committee for League of Cities last Thursday, and that was a Zoom meeting, and they had a nice presentation on a lady, and they also had another gentleman on fentanyl and the issue that's causing the country, the state. The lady in question was a community member, Joanne Jennis, I guess was her name, and she, her son basically was an addict, or is an addict, I guess still. And then there was another gentleman who spoke, Sam Keonis, and he's an author and a former, I guess he's still a reporter, and I guess he wrote The Least of Us, True Tales of America and Hope in the Time of Fentanyl and Meth, and Dreamland, The True Tale of America's Opiate Epidemic. And I think they kind of referred you to his books, but if you Google him, there's a lot of insight there in fentanyl. And then basically it was kind of like the first meeting because things have been canceled because of the weather and stuff, so that's all I've got.
Okay, thank you. There was no MCOG meeting in March. There were no action items, so they canceled the meeting, but we will meet again next month. So just in a few days here. Museum Advisory Board was canceled earlier this month because of snow, but we did schedule that, and we met today, the first time in person, which was pretty fun to see everybody. The big news from the Museum Advisory Board is that the museum received an endowment from Mr. Bittenbender, who passed away and left a substantial amount of money to the community, including $500,000 to the Mendocino County Museum. So this is potentially ground changing for them to get them on some sound financial long-term sustainability. Right now the county has the funds. The Museum Advisory Board today made a strong recommendation to go before the Board of Supervisors to ask that the money be transferred to the Mendocino County Foundation, where it will not only earn more interest that would create an annual revenue stream for the museum to work on programs, but it would also make the money available to more community organizations because the community foundation can loan that money out when it's not in, immediate need for the museum. So the board unanimously approved that recommendation. I would like to recommend that the city council also make that recommendation to go to the board of supervisors to show our support for the museum and recognize its vital cultural role that it plays here in Willits. I feel like if the board of supervisors heard not only from the museum advisory board but also from the Willits City Council that they recommend that prudent fiscal move, it would be beneficial. So I wanted to put that out to the rest of you.
Are we allowed to kind of give informal direction to do that, even though it's not agendized?
Or is that something that needs to go in a future?
Like a resolution.
You could communicate your consensus of your desire for that. And,
I'm in consensus.
Me too.
Yes, Larry?
Sure.
Okay. Consensus, Brian. Do you need more from us?
And then
Was that like wink, wink, nudge, nudge?
let us know when it's on the agenda and we can comment.
The other item, I have two more. Brian and I met with Supervisor Haschek last week. We had some questions for him regarding the county's role in weather emergencies, everything from providing additional sand in our fill station to help or assistance with road closures during extreme events. There were multiple items that Mr. Haschek was going to get back to us on at our next meeting. So we're on track now for our monthly meetings that Sabrina had been doing last year, and hoping that that will be good. There was one point where Supervisor Haschek said, "Oh, this is really good. I like these questions." So I felt like maybe, hopefully we'll get some answers.
And one question that was raised, he did explain there was clarification, and that hopefully, in the question, the subject of the question was, when the county was operating their OES calls, first during the rain events and then the snow events, and Chief, I give you a lot of credit for attending some of those because I just bailed, because of the content of the discussions and the material that we were receiving from various county departments wasn't to a level that I thought was ideal, and the other cities thought as well. So basically, we asked Supervisor Haschek if there was going to be a lessons learned session, and I guess they started that process recently, and that we asked to be at least a city representative from the four municipalities, have someone sit in so we can convey our concerns and what we would be looking in return from helpful information from those briefings.
And that seemed like a dazzlingly fresh idea to him.
Yes, yes. At times, we seem to be telling him more about his own organization than he knows about his organization. So, I mean, it's either a good or bad perspective, however you want to look at it. But, yes, we're continuing on the dialogue that Sabrina had, and there's times when we ask him pretty pointed questions, and he's uncomfortable with the responses.
For the emergency operations, who was leading that? The Sheriff's Department OES folks?
It was Darcy.
I forgot his name. Garrett. He's he is the interim OES coordinator that was, and then right before the end of last year, they being the county, they assigned their OES staff under Darcy's as the CEO.
Because I know in the past it's gone kind of, sometimes really good information was passed and sometimes it's almost like the B team had it.
Well, I know, obviously Puerto Rico, at least in the first wave of the winter events, they were hit hard, and they felt that their concerns and in their area of the county was not getting the correct information on road closures, county response, and basically assistance that could be provided to their residents.
I mean, I know that during the fires a couple of years ago, I think we learned that we needed to have a seat at the table, otherwise it seemed like we were the last to know. And so I definitely encourage us to be more involved.
Okay. I also wanted to report that the Finance Committee meeting that was supposed to happen this week did not happen, but hopefully we will have that rescheduled for next week, at which point we will get on track for approving candidates on the Measure K committee so that we can get that ball rolling. I also wanted to say that one of the items that came up in the discussion with Supervisor Haschek was, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, when we had this third round of snow, there was an accident right on Oil Well Hill, and Highway 101 was closed for a few hours in the morning. There was a semi-truck that used his GPS and said, oh, I'll take an alternate route since I can't go that way. I'm going to go up Sherwood Road and take the Laytonville-Sherwood Road, and it'll pop me out right past this problem. Well, he missed it, and he went up Sherwood, and he got stuck in the snow at like Third Gate, and it was a big deal, and it was a huge conversation on social media. And so Brian and I were discussing whether or not there should be some kind of signage at the bottom of Sherwood Road saying this is not an alternate route. We do not support this as an alternate route. Because there were a lot of people on social media asking, why isn't the city telling drivers they can't go up this road? So we were going to look into that. I also reached out to Congressman Wood's office, and Ruth has got me in touch with someone from Huffman's office to discuss getting some kind of update with Google so that there's new and better data to indicate that some of our surface roads are not suitable as alternate routes for truck drivers. So that's happening.
Not even cars a lot of times.
Yeah.
And not even Fords.
Not even Fords.
All right, that is it for the City Council announcements, communications, and reports. Does anybody have any good and welfare? Yes.
This is March 22nd, and Virginia and I have celebrated our anniversary of 64 years. I don't know how she put up with me that long, but anyhow, thank you.
Congratulations.
John Haschek mentioned the building community event that happened on Sunday. We had, I think, over 40 people there. It was sponsored by Well, but it was very inclusive of a broad section of people there that I haven't seen at meetings before. And we had 6 breakout groups talking about warming center, housing and business support, youth, seniors, health, local food and agriculture, and at the end of the breakout sections, people came back and had some really cool ideas that I'm hoping to keep working on and have these little breakout groups sort of carry the momentum. So it was really fun to see. Oh, and by the way, the senior center is going to be having a volunteer garden day as soon as the weather is more conducive, and they're going to have 5th grade class join them there. That was one of the things that was announced. There was a lot of exciting energy there, so I was pleased with that.
Very good, thank you. All right, we do have a closed session tonight. We have our annual performance evaluations of the city manager, so that will be up next for us, lucky devils. The rest of you get to go home. Thank you for being here. Thank you for a long night. We appreciate you. Quick break. That in closed session, we issued the city manager's annual performance evaluation. We unanimously gave him a vote of approval, and we, on a 4-to-1 vote, approved a 5% merit increase.
Okay. And it is 10:40? Yep. Okay.